Howdy, howdy. Welcome back to my tiny corner of the internet. So we're going to pick off where we were last time with this game. You know, we're going to continue going on. We're going to build some iron armor or something like that. I'm not very good with names, but, you know, it is what it is. I think the stream should be going live just about now. Hopefully, I won't get a gorillion echoes. There we go. Now it goes up. I'm going to mute it so I don't have to hear myself, because I don't like hearing my own voice. That's kind of the funny part, is because some people consider that I have like a nice voice, and I don't know. Everyone's self-conscious of their own voice. I don't really consider my voice that like too terribly spectacular. What's up, Benelli? Welcome to the chat. First person here. Hope you're doing well, man. Hope your work week's going well. You know, decided to pick up where I left off on figuring out this game Hightail and just kind of playing. What's up, Polaris? So you guys want to see something funny? You know, I might as well do it just because, like, you know, it's kind of a funny one. But you remember that interview that I did with City Crush, dude? Okay, so not only has he made a video on me, but he's also made, like, a second video on me. And so I've been going through that. I was listening to that at work, and his entire thesis is that I must be bound up by my wife and just completely cucked or something like that as a beta boxer. It's kind of one of those things. It's like, you know what? You can believe whatever you want, man. You're free to believe whatever you want, but it's kind of retarded. I might go over that later on the stream, but I kind of just want to chill and chat and kind of play a Hightail, because why not? So yeah, hopefully your work week's going well. So, if I can remember correctly, you know, I'm trying to figure out, you know, how to play this game, is that trying to figure out how to get iron armor at this point. So we need to figure out how we can get some, you know, leather lining or something like that. So that's how we construct that armor piece. But I think we have to kill cows or something like that to get iron armor. I have copper armor, so that should last a little while. But, you know, again, hope your guys' work week's going all right. Mine's not going too terribly bad. But it is kind of funny watching, like, you know, the videos, you know, kind of being uploaded by a bunch of other content creators, like, adjacent to the audiences that I pretty much talk to, is because, you know, City Crusher's, of course, an MRA. Now, here's kind of the interesting thing. Fun fact about, like, MRAs and, like, MiG towers and stuff like that is because, like, you know, back in the 2010s, I used to be in a lot of those circles. I used to kind of listen to a lot of those talking points, right? And there's currently a divide between, like, red pillars, black pillars, and MRAs. Okay, and if you remember from the debate from last time between, you know, myself and City Crusher, which wasn't even a debate, it was originally intended to be an interview, and even City Crusher kind of admitted that fact after that fact, right? Is that, like, his core thesis about female nature, if you really want to get into it, is that, you know, they are just, like, biological gold. That's essentially the jux of his thesis, right? You know, obviously my position was arguing that's not the case, and that looks play a lot more of a role into it than, you know, say, you know, status, which I kind of laugh at, but, you know, that's the hill that he's pretty much on, right? But the thing is, if you want to understand, like, why somebody takes those positions, if you want to understand why somebody takes those positions on, you know, in those circles, is because, like, if you look at the generational gap, like, you know, between boomers and Gen Z men, right? You know, boomers were very much like a part of that generation that was kind of, you know, raised with those customs and traditions to follow those expectations, where a man's expected to be the breadwinner, right? You know, it's still kind of culturally expected nowadays. Dual incomes are not necessarily as common as they were, you know, back then. But, you know, you can tell this guy's, you know, from Gen X, okay? You know, not that he's a bad guy. I can tell he's gone through a lot of stuff, so I'm not going to take too many shots at him. But the thing is you can tell he's coming from Gen X, and he's more or less talking from a level of experience. And I've noticed this with elder generations, right? You know, a lot of early MiG towers, you know, got their beginnings, you know, as they were elder men, you know, boomer men or Gen X men that, you know, were divorced, you know, raped, if you want to say that, right? You know, they were taken advantage of through legal and the court systems. You know, they took the side of the woman or whatever, right? They awarded her the house, the assets, and all that stuff, right? And so the thing is that left like a group of, like, disenchanted, bitter men that wanted to, in a sort of sense, pass their wisdom about how women acted in the court systems, how they got screwed over, you know, and pass that wisdom to younger generations. Okay? Now, these were the kind of expectations that, like, that generation went through. They were more, you know, built on, like, the idea of being the breadwinner, you know, status maxing or whatever, right? And so, like, a lot of the ideology that these people have is built around the concept of status. Status is the thing that men, you know, attain to acquire women or whatever, right? And I would even argue that's not even, like, relevant nowadays. I'm probably more in the black pillar camp, where it's like looks are probably a much more, like, determining factor on how relationships go nowadays. Is because, again, like, when women got their economic independence to some degree, it's like, you know, everyone can admit, like, you know, that they are going towards, you know, the direction of choosing men more based on their looks as opposed to their economic success. Now, it may have been, you know, different like 50 years ago or something like that, right? You know, where, you know, you didn't really have that economic agency. Women didn't necessarily work or at least participate in the broader economy. And so they kind of just, you know, relied on, you know, the economic status of men, right? And so the thing is you can see that manifests, that difference in realities, you know, manifests between generations, between younger generations and older generations, right? And so if you notice that with, like, you know, City Crusher, and that's not even take a shot against him, is because the fact is, it's like, you know, essentially he comes from a generation of men that saw this going on, you know, to them, you know, the divorce courts taking advantage of men, taking their assets and all that sorts of stuff. And so in his own way, he's trying to pass on wisdom to younger men to avoid toxic women. And I'm gonna be real with you. You know, I do that in my way too. It's like, you know, I don't advise any guy to necessarily, like, you know, get in a relationship with a toxic woman, or necessarily where they're going to get taken advantage of, is because the fact is we've all heard the horror stories, you know. The West really feels like Nazi Germany, where it's practicing eugenics. Yeah, it kind of is, but that's kind of thing. It's like, you know, you don't fall for, like, the relationship stuff, you know, of, you know, basically getting in. Don't feel like you have an obligation as a man to submit yourself to a woman who is going to take advantage of you. And that's what I was trying to tell, like, City Crusher in our interview / discussion when I talked about beta boxing. Okay, it's because the funny part is he's been taking that as a sticking point in his talking points in his videos about me, you know, saying that I'm insulting men for beating beta boxers. No, quite the opposite. I don't want you to be a beta boxer, okay? You know, if you're a guy and you're, you know, going way outside of your league in terms of looks, right? You know, we're going to get a little bit in black pill theory here if you're interested in hearing that. Is the thing is, if you go way out of your league, it's like when the bully in the high school movies in like the 90s said, you know, she's out of your league, right? You know, it's because the fact is, if you start going for somebody out of your league where there's like a huge imbalance on the way people look, okay? Eventually you're going to get a woman that, you know, like they're just going to sigh and give in and just kind of let you do your own thing. And she's going to barely tolerate your existence. She's not attracted to you. She doesn't like you. She tolerates you. And, you know, imagine like living and marrying that woman, okay? You know, that's why I kept telling you, it's like a dead bedroom. That imbalance is going to lead to just an overall unhappy relationship, you know? And so that's why I say, it's like, you know, to guys, don't be a beta boxer in a relationship. You don't want to be at the whims of a woman where your only value to a woman is what you can provide her, because nothing is more depressing than just being a glorified ATM, right? And that's something that I kind of was trying to get to the point with City Crusher, is that, like, if you're building your value, you're saying all women, you know, are gold diggers, which I don't personally agree with. And he sent me a ton of videos in, you know, Discord DMs saying, like, you know, look at all these women that were thoughty as hell, you know, they're on the Vegas Strip, they're obviously probably prostitutes or something like that. And they make it very explicit that, you know, their one thing that they want is basically resources. They want money. You know, that's, you know, from the get-go, that's what they expect out of the relationship. I think I'm going to dig down here. And so the thing is that, like, with those type of women, I'm not saying the difference between me and City Crusher is going to say this is all women, AWOL, all women are like that, some nonsense like that. You know, it's because, you know, he'll go down the whole dynamic of hypergamy, how women, you know, men or women are hypergamous and they select men, you know, based on, you know, economic resources, economic hypergamy, which I don't necessarily agree with. And some people did point that out in his comment section as well, as, you know, accusing me of basically, you know, kind of conflating the two. And I could kind of somewhat agree with that, guys, because that was one fair criticism I saw in his comment section. But the thing is that, like, you know, the idea that they mostly go for, you know, just resources alone is one of the things that's, like, I've noticed that with a lot of older men, and they think that's the only thing that they go for. Like, no, looks do much matter. They do matter when it comes to relationship and, like, how people select partners. Yeah, we've all heard men select partners based on looks, but, like, to pretend women don't is one of the stupidest fucking things on the face of the planet. Right? And so the fact is that if your only value that you provide to a woman is economic resources, then you're going to get a woman who is going to see you like an ATM. Because I don't personally subscribe to the position that women select men purely based on their ATM status on, you know, because, like, City Crusher even has a video saying, you know, money is more important than looks. You know, debate me on that. He was arguing, like, Rehab Room, which is another black pill tuber. Right? And so the thing is, he's arguing that, you know, money is more important than looks. And I fundamentally disagree with you. I disagree with that is because the fact is it's usually a little bit of both, but obviously looks, you know, are probably going to carry you a little bit further than just money. You know, with money, you know, you're just basically a pay pig. You know, you might as well just go do Findom at that point. You might as well just, like, go find the nearest, like, woman on Twitch and just start giving her unlimited money. Open up your wallet, bro. You're practically 2 steps away from being a beta boxer at that point, right? And my goal isn't necessarily to take or even adopt the position that all women are gold diggers, because that's fucking retarded, okay? My goal is to say avoid those women is because they're a waste of your time. Don't ever be a beta boxer for a woman like that who's just going to take advantage of you. Yeah, I'm mentioning Rehab Room in the chat. Yeah, I don't agree with everything he says, but the fact is I probably consider myself more on the black pill adjacent side of the aisles, because the fact is it's not so much about, like, you know, how we feel about things. It's just an acknowledgement of reality, okay? Because you want to understand how reality is so you can better navigate around it. And that's why I say, you know, don't be a beta boxer for a woman, okay? You know, if you have the short straw when it comes to looks, the attractive people get cheated on all looks aren't end all. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, looks aren't everything. But the thing is that, like, you know, you're gonna have a significantly easier time, you know, if you're more attractive. And that's kind of the funny part, is because, you know, Luigi Mangione kind of just proved that as well. And, you know, the thing is that, like, you know, City Crusher kind of blamed, you know, that it's because he's a violent murderer. That's the reason, like, why women liked him. And that's kind of the funny part. One of the biggest, you know, thesis that I've talked about on this channel when it comes to that, right? When you see a, you know, serial killer, you know, get a ton of love letters in jail because he did something abhorrent, okay? You know, more often than not, it's not that women find those things attractive in a man. It's the fact is that attractive men are allowed to get away with things that normally ugly men would not be allowed to get away with. It's just a fact of life. It's called pretty privilege. I tried to talk about it a little bit in that stream. It's just a fact of life, is that pretty people tend to have an easier life and get away with more things than ugly people. And because, like, you know, when somebody says, oh, they're attracted to him is because he's a violent thug or something like that. No, they're attracted to him is because he's attractive, and they're just excusing pathologically, like, all the evil things he did. And people will make the same thing with women too, okay? You know, if a man finds a woman attractive and she does a bunch of evil things, but she's attractive, you know, men will fantasize the shit out of that all the damn time. That's like half of, like, you know, animes these days anyways. I quit all video games, etc. Looks matter. I grind all the time. I love the art of overcompensating by drawing. Yeah, sure, good for you, man. I subscribe to the position that I have a homie girl type who reads and does cute things. It's all the stuff. The funny part is that, like, you know, that's not unattainable. If you just kind of drop the whole, you know, that all women are gold digger stuff, you lose that chip off your shoulder and realize that not all women are like that. I know it's kind of stereotypical, and I'm probably gonna get dogpiled by, like, MRAs on that regard. It's like, you can kind of move on that. Am I saying, you know, don't be cautious over toxic women? No, not saying that at all. But, you know, it's one of those things, it's like, you know, there's a level of maturity that can kind of go along with it to kind of, you know, move on, you know, with your life, to kind of recognize, yeah, there's going to be toxic women that will try and take advantage of you if they can. And we've all seen that from Myron Gaines, you know, the Fresh and Fit podcast. We've all seen that stuff, you know. Let's be honest here. I have more, like, probably like a 60% right-wing audience. So, you know, most of you guys have at least seen some of the talking points used, you know, within red pill and black pill circles. So, you know, there's no reason to beat around the bush on that stuff. It's just telling the truth at this point. So let's see if we can find some iron armor. We need to figure out how to get some linen or, you know, leather or something like that. But other than that, it's like, you know, in the modern world, if you want to find a partner, you know, just recognize the fact that, like, people are different, and that, you know, you should obviously not just settle down with a woman. Don't be like how do you avoid being a beta boxer? Let's be honest here, okay? The only time you should, like, you know, really be on the eye out is, like, you know, if, like, a woman is, like, using you as her second option to settle down, okay? Like, that's an obvious fact. We've all seen that, right? It's kind of funny, because when I was watching that, you know, video by City Crusher, howdy, dude, what's up, August? When I was watching that video by City Crusher, right, you know, he was talking about, like, you know, the whole alpha thing, the beta box thing. He's accusing me of using red pill language, even though I'm probably closer to a black pillar. You know, the whole red pill stuff, he was, like, accusing me of using red pill language. He was like, well, that's messed up, you know, why would they fuck the pool boy? It's like, I've never heard of that. And I was like, dude, have you never heard of the saying alpha fucks beta bucks? Oofy doofy max, dude. Yeah, there you go, rehab room, there we go. But the thing is, I'm 90% sure you have heard the term alpha fox beta box, okay? You know, it's because the fact is, while beta boxer is giving the money, he's being the ATM, he's the backup plan that, you know, she settled down for. Alpha's, you know, still having his way. That's the thing. None of this shit is new. Okay, we've known about this since day one. The thing is people like to pretend it doesn't exist. And that's the thing. It's like, you know, City Crusher kind of does this with the status stuff. Is that he pretends that it's purely status, and I'm arguing that if you just go, you know, off the purely status method, then you're just going to end up being like a tradcuck beta boxer at that point. It's like, you know, I must provide, you know, to prove my worth to a woman I didn't even like. Oh, all women are gold diggers, right? Then you get people like Scamza coming along the line and saying that, like, well, you know, since that's what women value, you know, your value as a man is predicated on appealing to this particular type of women that is not even true. It's not even accurate of all women, but I'm going to project it on all women, say that's all women, and then, you know, predicate all my value on appealing to this type of woman, and then get upset that I've attracted the particular woman that I hated in the first place. Great. You know, that's the gist of why I don't take, like, the red pill stuff too terribly seriously, and that's what I was trying to tell City Crusher. It's like when you go down the whole status thing, the pure status thing, it's like, you know, you're just kind of wasting your time, man. I thought I was the only one. I have a way of talking to people and addressing both sides of the aisle in an honest and fair manner. And I try to give everybody a shot and have an honest discussion about even more controversial ideas. Which is why I didn't even oppose of, you know, putting an MRA on my stream and having discussion with him, is because I'm willing to talk to any side of the aisle. So Tom Brady has status, looks, and money and still got divorced. That's gonna happen, you know, that can happen. It's not, this isn't so much to say that, you know, it's a set in stone, like, outcome thing, like somebody who's attractive will never get divorced or whatever, right? That's not the thesis. But statistically speaking, on averages, you know, this is just how things will go. Okay, yeah, there's gonna be exceptions to every rule. You know, we all know that, you know, exceptions are a real thing. That's why you can't say definitively, concretely something will happen. Attractiveness has a greater determination of success than gender depending on the religion. That's not necessarily wrong. Yeah, that's kind of thing. So attractiveness just takes you pretty far. It'll grease the wheels on a lot of things. So. I'm still wondering where you get leather, but I don't know I'm going to the caves if I'm looking for leather. And it's one of those stupid things where you just get caught into talking about something, you know, talking about a life lesson, and, you know, you just forget that you're running around in a world on hightail, and you're not figuring out how to play the game. You can tell that's how you know I'm a natural yapper, somebody who just kind of talks. So, somebody who gets, you know, so busy into talking about something forgets, like, what he's doing in the first place. But that's how you know you're having a good conversation. It's not any different in real life. You know, you could be really having a good conversation. So, I'm very ignorant, but if women and the gynocracy are a problem these guys have, wouldn't the logical solution be more collective nature than get a Bugatti? Well, that's kind of the thing I've tried to tell red pillars all along, right? Is because the fact is they'll get upset. Okay, so, like, let's go down the red pill, like, you know, logic chain for a sec. Okay, so we all seen the videos of, like, you know, thoughts on the Vegas Strip, like, you know, talking about how they want, you know, beta boxers, they want money, whatever, right? They need the cash or whatever, right? They need their pay pigs, they need their Findom pays or something like that, right? You know, the things, we've all seen that, okay? I would argue from my position that that's not all women. I'm gonna go NAWALD, okay? Like, if you talk to a lot of the red pillars and you know, people like City Crusher, they're gonna argue that is all women. That is AWOL. All women are like that. This is female nature. You know, hypergamy. They're only gonna choose, like, the most capable man that's gonna, like, be able to, you know, give them as much money as possible. So it's all about status and, like, how I can beta bucks or something like that, right? And they'll be upset about this, right? They will take the thoughtiest woman on the face of the planet to use this as a vindication of their theory of all women. Okay, then they will take this theory, project it on all women. And the funny part is if you ask them, you know, wait a minute, you said you didn't like these kinds of women, you said gold diggers were awful, right? Now you're projecting it on all women, right? You know, so, like, what's your gist here? You don't like gold diggers, you don't like this kind of, you know, aspect of female nature or whatever, right? You know, so why don't you just go for a more egalitarian relationship, like a dual income relationship, if you're so worried about being screwed over and taken advantage of, right? Well, then they'll say it's the natural order and say, you know, you've just got to accept it. It's like, make up your mind, man. Do you want a woman that is a gold digger? Because, like, if you're going to go full traditionalist, you're expected as a man to be protector and provider. That's a part of the rule set. That's a part of the agreement about being traditionalist, right? But if you don't like that aspect of female nature, why aren't you just an egalitarian? And, you know, I'm just saying what I realized years ago, okay, like a decade ago, when I was, you know, in these circles, realizing, like, wait a minute, like, okay, I don't have a problem. You know, I don't believe this is all women, number one. And number two, it's like, you know, this isn't all women. So, like, why wouldn't I go for more egalitarian roles? Because I don't like, you know, gold diggers. You know, that's the one thing I began to wonder, like, 10 years ago. I'm just saying this now is because the fact is, it's like, you know, I'm just going to quietly tell people. Because at the end of the day, like, you know, everybody has a choice on, like, accepting truth. Truth has always been a choice. You can either accept it or deny it. You can kind of go your own way, or you can kind of just keep falling for the garbage, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, you know, truth is always a choice. And you can choose to kind of acknowledge that fact or not, right? And that's the thesis of this channel. Like, I'm not out of my way to prove anything, right? It's kind of funny because City Crusher is making a ton of videos on me, and he's entirely free to do so, right? But here's how the dynamic works, is because, you know how it said in last stream, is that, like, you know, if you're gonna, you know, be a debate bro, if you're gonna go around, like, looking for arguments to basically clout farm and stuff like that, right? Because that's essentially what he's doing with my channel, is because he's essentially just trying to spread his ideas on my channel to my audience. And I don't personally care at the end of the day, is because, you know, some of the things he's, you know, says are correct, and some things I just fundamentally disagree with. But at the end of the day, right, you know, stuff like that doesn't work, is because the fact is you actually have to be able to spread your ideas in a coherent way and not strawman people. The thing is that every time he strawmans me or any of my positions, right, he effectively strawmans my audience. And that makes no sense whatsoever, okay? You can address my arguments, you know, face to face or don't. You know, it's ultimately a choice at the end of the day. He can make as many videos as he like, but if he wants to win over people in my audience, he has to actually, you know, address the arguments that brought them here in the first place, which, you know, watching these videos, he's not doing. You know, I got an entire lecture video by another YouTube channel talking about, you know, hypergamy, female hypergamy. Like, I've never heard of that. It's like, I've already heard this stuff before. I've been in the MRA circles. I've been in the MGTOW circles, right? It's kind of funny. One person was like, is this a turd-flinging monkey light? It's like, you know, if you've ever heard of that content creator. Yeah, and I just said categorically false. I don't fuck sex dolls, man. So the thing is that, like, you know, I've seen these circles. I know who these people are. So I want to talk about pro-male ideology. And you're free to talk about whatever you like, man. I know you're base crusher, right? You know, you're free to talk about whatever you want. I'm open for any kind of discussion. But, you know, there's no need to straw man. You can have an honest discussion, you know, about these ideas. Boomers barely want to help Gen Z fix cars, let alone gentlemen's classes, and that's the kind of problem. This is why I say, like, City Crusher's probably a little bit out of touch, okay? Because the thing is that he comes from a generation of people. He doesn't really see the cost of living crisis. It doesn't personally affect him as much. And so the fact is, it's like, and that's not an insult to him, right? It's because the fact is that's just coming from a position of ignorance more than it is like a position of malice or whatever, right? Because you can tell that he does care about like men's issues to some degree or whatever, right? But the fact is the kind of clout farm off of somebody who's just, you know, more interested in having an honest discussion about ideas is just kind of a waste of time. You could just, you know, be straightforward. He doesn't need to straw man anything I said. I remember in one of the comment sections, he was basically saying that, you know, he just uses these words. Alistiar just uses these words to make points, and he's not making actually any coherent points, and, you know, something straw man or whatever, right? You know, stuff like that. It's like, no, the interview is not deleted. I published it this morning, Exit of CFF. That's all public nowadays. It's like, there's no reason to hide it because we've already made like several posts on each other. It's all public. No, the interview is like completely public. Yeah, I think it's live stream number 9. Oh, I'm getting double teamed by these 2 Skeletors. So, it's not private. I am totally gonna get toasted. Oh, I did not get toasted. I thought I was gonna get destroyed. You are making massive assumptions. Dude, how am I making massive assumptions? I mean, you can comment in the chat and stuff like that, but like, really? Okay. Yeah, if you want to come to the Discord server, I'll perm you in. So, yeah, if you want to talk Base Crusher, I totally can. We can do it while I play this game. We can just chill and chat. I've already got that infrastructure set up if you want to do a collaboration stream if you want to. So, yeah. Give me 1 sec. Let me go ahead and start up a stage. Sure. Now interviewing Base Crusher. Let's go ahead and start this up. All right. Let's get this going, shall we? Oh, I'm going to turn it to streamer mode so I don't necessarily, you know, broadcast anyone's stuff. All right. Let's go ahead and set this up. Enable streamer mode. And let's go ahead and start up a stream. You with Base. Okay, let's go. Stream stage is up if you're interested in joining. The invite is on the description. So, now let's go ahead and swap over to the Discord stream. There we go. What's up, Dissident? Welcome to the stream. I'm gonna be doing a interview with Base Crushers because now he wants to have his chance on the stage too. So he is free to come to the stage. I'm gonna go back to playing the game. Let me know if he wants to come in. TIE Fighter, you're free to come on the stage while I just kind of play the game and chill. And you let me know if he shows up, so, you know, just pull him up. So, Base Crusher, you're 100% free to come to the stream and chill and chat and do whatever you like. But I'm going to continue playing this game until you come by. What is Raffle? Rolling out loud. I am OG PMC, Pro Male Collective. Okay, yeah, feel free to come on up to the stage whenever you're ready. Oh, that bear is going to destroy me, and he almost did. Oh, shit. Okay, that is not fun. Oh boy. Okay. Okay, he kind of fucked off, which is kind of nice. But now I need to reheal. Alright, you're in the Discord. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and swap it over to the Discord. Let's go ahead and go to the Discord stream. Let me know if you're on stage. Raise your hand if you're ready. If you're... Okay, you just joined in here. I'm gonna give you perms. Are you Wyatt, or are you... I can't tell. I'm just gonna perm you in. Alright. Okay, you're right there. I see you right here. Okay. I'm gonna go back to the game now that you're on here. Welcome to the stream, Wyatt, if you're on the chat. Alright, I'm gonna get my character healed up. The voice chat doesn't seem to be in your system. That should be weird. That would be really weird. No, you're, I've already invited you to the stage. So, let me know if you're gonna come up to the stage. I'll just be here. Yo, Base Crusher, if you want to come to the stage, just come on the stage. I've already invited you. Okay. Voice chat doesn't seem to be in your stream. Well, the thing is nobody is, like, nobody's on the stage. That's why you can't hear anybody. Discord server's in the description link, so... Oh, there we go. Did he finally come up to the stage? Oh, it's Empire. How's it going, man?
I'm trying to figure out how to move him.
Yeah... the thing is it's like, you can invite somebody to the stage, you can't force somebody on the stage. I've already given him the invite, he's just, you know, not coming on, so... MRAs and MGTOW are well-intentioned, but the idea itself needs to be worked, you know? Or is that true? True, is that you? Are you the person I need to bring up to the stage? OG, MC... Yeah, okay. Oh. I'll pull you up. Oh shit, you're literally... I'm gonna have to do a 1v1 with you on this one. So like nobody else... Like if it's... Are you true as the YouTuber? Is that your tag? Okay, so... Is nobody allowed on the stage? Well, I'm gonna continue playing the game. Like, I don't know how we're gonna do this, is because I remember True was, tell you what. Go to voice chat and I'll pull you into a 1v1. Let me add a 1v1 real quick. Let me add that in. Okay. Voice. Interview. Okay. Let's add that. Edit. Number of people. Okay. Alright, so come down to the voice chat is because that I'm gonna end the stage. And you'll have to tune in through the stream. So alright, there you go. Cool. Now you should be able to talk, is because of Australia's weird laws or some nonsense like that.
Yeah. I think it's
cool.
OGPMC that wanted to debate you. Or have a discussion.
Yeah. Tell them to get in the voice chat below and I'll pull them in. Sound good?
Alright. Yep. Yeah. Nope.
Take it easy, man.
Firefighter.
OGPMC. Who is that? Is that Wyatt that is his name?
It's just OGPMC. He's got the green profile picture.
Okay, yeah. Okay, cool. I see him. Let me pull him in. Alright, cool.
I'll let you two.
Thanks.
This is private.
Yep. I'm gonna do 1v1 with PMC on this one, so...
Okay.
Welcome to the stream,
Okay.
man. Hope you're doing well.
So we actually gave criticism to City Crusher for his performance because we don't do group, we don't do in-group out-group bias. I did a hangout with someone and I actually criticised City Crusher's performance because I think it was too hostile, to be honest. So, and we're going to have disagreements because, to be honest, I've talked to your group and I've watched some of your streams. I get the impression you're left wing, right?
Yes,
So
economically.
you do have a better understanding. Yeah, so you do have a better understanding of issues than most people, right wingers. But I do think your ideological worldview is missing a lot, right? Like most people's is. So I'm just gonna. So I just want to talk and I'll explain my ideology because I'm not here to promote myself because my channel won't grow anyway because it's nerfed. I'm here to promote my ideas.
Here's the funny thing.
I want my ideas to spread.
Here's the funny thing about like channel growth. Like I want to give you a little bit of a secret because like here's the kind of thing. So I used to do a lot what like effectively City Crusher did, right? When it comes to channel growth, when it comes to like social media growth, you have to focus on like building your own internal audience. And the reason I know this is because I used to go around debating people and like, you know, finding people to argue with and stuff like that, right? You know, and so the thing is like, it's not so much that like it's a nerfing thing. It's the thing is that like, you know, you got to know who you're speaking with and how to actually grow an audience, is because the fact is you can spend time, you know, debating me all day, right? And, you know, my audience might even agree with you on that sort of stuff, right? But it's not going to grow you a whole lot, okay? Because I sat at like 200 subs after I debated Destiny. I got no growth debating somebody who had like 500k subs, right? And so I'm kind of speaking from experience on this.
I've had more than one channel. I had a politics channel, and I've got a men's issues channel that's still up, and I had a politics channel. And some of my videos were getting thousands of views, right? Yeah. And when I talked about the issue of Zionism, because I'm anti-Zionist, my channel dropped. It was literally, I was getting 50 views a video, and then it got banned. So I do know nerfing happens on certain topics.
Oh, okay. So you probably are nerfed. Like, that's a possibility. Okay, I'm not going to, like, you know, knock you on that one. So you could be right. I'm just kind of, like, speaking on my thing. Because, like, you know, I've been through, like, that kind of corner where I just kind of sat as, like, a relative nobody. And so, like, that's kind of the thing. It's like, I know what it's kind of like to be on that side of the aisle, you know, when it comes to channel growth. Not saying I'm like a guru at YouTube success. I'm certainly no Mr. Beast, but it's like I'm like semi-aware of, like, you know, being on one side of the aisle. What did I miss with the debate? PS City Crusher Crew style, nothing wrong.
We do have a full audience as well. Like, City Crusher gets loads of comments and his views are low, and I get quite a few comments on my videos. Because I've got at least like 30 hardcore people that watch me, and I don't grow. Basically, so they've known me for years, so I am hard nerfed. So, and the thing is, what's happened to? So I get the impression you know what MGTOW is. You was around for over 10 years ago. You was probably around like 2014, 2013. Right?
Yeah, that's accurate. I was like, so like, what kind of brought me into, like, you know, that side of the aisle for a little while before it really began to take off back in the day was, you know, basically, if you remember, like, The Amazing Atheist doing It's Only Sexist When Men Do It, like, that was the big thing that kind of brought me to, like, you know, that side of the aisle, is because I remember, like, seeing all these kind of cultural double standards being like, you know, that's kind of fucked up. And if you try to criticize it, you just be like, you know, just outright called a misogynist, right? I remember those days. And so, you know, probably mid-2010s is probably when I kind of saw a lot of that side of the aisle. You know, I still remember Sandman, you know, TFM and all those, you know, people, you know, back in the day. You know, I did watch them briefly, so I have seen their videos. Hell, even one guy was suggesting doing an interview with, like, Undead Chronic, which I'm not against either.
Yeah, TFM was a nutcase, but anyway.
No, TFM was 100% a nutcase. You got off.
In my opinion, from my point of view, he's the one that kicked MGTOW off. MGTOW died because of Turtle Feeling Monkey. Because I just want to talk about Turtle Feeling Monkey because what he actually did. So,
hey everyone, I'm Sandman.
I dropped the MGTOW label because of him. And there's other reasons as well, because it's a flawed ideology. But I dropped it mainly because of him. So he did this video called The Magical Male Scarcity, right?
Yeah.
And what that video basically, so his theory is, and it's debunked by history because it actually doesn't work like this. So basically, men have a basic economic value. If there's less men, they become more valuable, and the remaining men have more sexual success and get more women. And we've got a surplus of men, right? Because it doesn't work like that. It's not a simplistic supply and demand. Like in Russia, there's less men and women because of the fall of the Soviet Union, and millions of men died due to alcoholism. The remaining men are not more sexually successful. Doesn't make sense. So anyway, he was actually implying the need for male mass murder. If you think about
I remember that. It's like, because he was trying to basically do, like, this whole supply and demand argument. Like, I do remember that back in the day. Because I think he was, like, basing it off, like, China's one-child policy or whatever.
Yes, and he was basically MGTOW's cheered him on, right? And then he did a video promoting Black Pigeon Speaks, who was a right-wing white nationalist as well.
Yeah, I remember BPS
as well. He wasn't promoting him directly. He just sort of said, "Oh yeah, we disagree with him, but he says some interesting things." And Black Pigeon Speaks was just talking about the cracks of civilization and talking about what he'll do. But remember, Black Pigeon Speaks, he'll talk about civilization collapsing, and then he'll do this camera cut to an immigrant, like a Muslim man, fearmonger. Right? He's implying things like right wingers do. So he was promoting him, and MGTOW basically died. It was going to die anyway because it didn't have a provided logical function.
Well, the thing is, like, the whole thesis of MGTOW was, like, you know, like, going monk mode or whatever, right? I remember, like, you know, watching a couple of videos like that. And it's like, you know, if you want to, like, if you don't want to do relationships, like, for whatever reason, it's just not your cup of tea or whatever, right? You know, I'm kind of more along the lines, okay, you know what, you do you, man. If you want to go full monk mode, that's your choice. It's your prerogative. You're entirely free to do so. You know, obviously, some people are going to get in the moral shame game, which I always thought was kind of stupid. Everybody's kind of free to do their own thing.
Well, the problem with MGTOW is it's not a political stance. It actually doesn't mean anything. So, first of all, most MGTOWs are deselected men, to be honest, and who look, because I was in the community. There were so many men. As soon as they got a girlfriend, they left the community.
Yeah, every single time. Because like, the thing is, eventually they found somebody that they were compatible with, and so they just left.
Yeah.
You know.
So
Like, I've never been one of those people that kind of kick the ladders, because I remember some guy in the comment was saying, it's like, well, he's got a wife, so he's just gonna, like, completely, like, just shaft all men or some nonsense. No, I'm still pretty self-aware of, like, cultural double standards. I try to be fair at the end of the day. I don't try to take one side or the other,
So anyway, MGTOW is not a political stance. So when you think about it, if you think about it structurally, a man goes, oh, I'm not going to date women anymore. No. It doesn't change things politically. It's like,
no,
okay,
it doesn't.
So what? All right. So I know MGTOWs, what it did as well, it actually caused infighting with the MRAs, which is a lot of MRAs' fault, but it also undermined the MRA ideology because it gave men an escape outlet that they don't deserve, or it's not counterproductive. So men are facing serious problems and they're getting worse because as a group, they don't have an in-group bias, they don't work together politically, they don't work for the common good for their own interests as a group. Right, they infight a lot. And
I see where you're coming from, but like you might like really disagree with me on this, because I know this is like something that's like kind of like something you take very seriously and stuff like that. I feel like culturally things have gotten better in a certain sense. Like, don't get me wrong, you still get like the rad femmes every once in a while that you see, like, I call it the 500k Twitter like block that just dogpiles like some guy that drives them off the wall or something like that, right? You still get that, but like the thing is, like, by and large, I've noticed more guys are self-aware of like how things can go wrong and how not to get taken advantage of. As opposed to the 2010s, right?
Well, let me interject. So there's no personal solution to systematic problems. So it's like you can be self-aware as an individual. That's the MGTOW philosophy, and avoid things, but you can't avoid systematic institutional discrimination.
Agreed.
So, for example, in the UK, there was a female member. There was a police officer a couple of years ago. He was basically a serial killer and a rapist, and he chopped a woman up. So he falsely arrested her. He put her in the back of a van. He murdered her and raped her and killed her. Right. Yeah. And there was a House of Lords. There was a feminist House of Lords member. She was calling for a male-only curfew. Right. Okay. Yeah. So I know there was anti-staring, not anti-staring laws, there was anti-harassment laws, but the police had to interpret it for anti-staring, and there was actually anti-staring posters, and someone got arrested over it. It's actually getting worse. It's not getting better. And also, I was going to lead to this, but we digressed.
Go ahead.
So the reason why I was talking about the past is because in the past there was much more anti-feminist content and it wasn't nerfed, and now it's been nerfed to hell on YouTube. There's far less of it. There was a much bigger anti-feminist community, like in 2014, and it's now more.
No, I remember. I was a part of that. I still remember when like the Amazing Atheist like was dunking on feminists in his older videos back in the early 2010s, and I thought it was the funniest thing on the planet, right? But here's kind of thing, like the censorship, like I don't know, maybe it's changed. I haven't really been on that side of the aisle, so I can't really speak on it nowadays. But the thing is that like I still remember like the censorship, because I remember like there was one thing that like went viral, like some Red Dead Redemption video or whatever, right? And that was basically what kind of really kicked things off to like people like hating feminism, is because it's like, a guy, did something to some feminist on like, a Red Dead Redemption video, and it got deleted within a day or something like that, right? Yes. And that caused like a huge backlash. It's like what that's what I think it was like 2017, and a bunch of people just like started backlashing on it, like significantly when it came to those things. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like
there's a massive double standard there as well, because like there's who's that pop star? I can't remember her name. She made a pop video calling men man children, right? She makes like pop videos full of murder of men, like she murders men in pop videos, right? Like decapitates.
Oh, I remember that. That was way more commonplace back in the 2010s. I remember that explicitly. Maybe there's like some idiots that still do that currently, but the thing is, I just kind of ignore them, is because they're just not really mainstream these days.
Well, they are mainstream. That's the problem. It's mainstream and getting away. The thing is, it's like feminists and man haters. What they'll do, they'll boundary push. They'll say something misandrous. They'll incite violence, and then they'll get away with it, and then they'll boundary push anymore. I think it's getting worse. Like video gaming's been trashed by feminists. So has anime, so has comics, so has the entertainment industry.
That's not so much like it getting bashed by women. I'm going to argue that's just normification, if you know what I mean. Like, what I mean is that because it's appealing to a broader audience, it's like, because it's reaching a broader audience, it's going to have that less variability. You can even see this with movies. What made anime unique in like the 2000s was that it was something that was different. It wasn't, you know, adapted for a Western audience. But now, like, you know, the heavy hitters are all appealing to Western audiences. Like, even the creator of Evangelion basically had to tell, like, Western audiences, you know, fuck off, this is for, like, a Japanese audience. It's like, it's called, like, lowest common denominator.
You're wrong.
Like,
I can point out the mistake you're making. This stuff is not being done to appeal to a Western audience. It doesn't appeal to a Western audience. It's been done by feminist ideologues, and they don't care. If it doesn't appeal to a Western audience, it attacks the franchise, they'll still do it. That's the repeated pattern. That's with Star Wars. So what feminists do...
Well, like, look at, like,
have you heard of the Whisper Network?
I vaguely remember the Whisper Network, but go on.
Oh, let me explain it. So there was this woman, and she pretended to be a feminist, right? And she infiltrated a Whisper Network in the comics industry. And this is very important because it's a pattern of behaviour that applies to other fields, and it's going on in other fields. There's even a CIA Whisper Network, apparently, from what I hear. So anyway, this woman, she infiltrated the comic book female Whisper Network, right, and exposed them. Okay, and the Whisper Network was just like, they did torturous interference, so rumors spreading about other comic book companies, they were going after no comic book creators, they were coordinating accusations, right, and they were obviously
they basically do social smears.
Yes, networking, getting each other jobs, and they were promoting feminism, and they didn't care, they ran the company into the ground. That's the thing. So the network...
that's kind of thing. Here's the funny part, is that, like, you know, like, I have a little bit of a, like, I wouldn't say hot take, an opinion on that one, right? It's called normification. The reason I say that is because, like, you ever watched a Marvel movie and recognize that it's, like, the most soulless, least offensive thing on the face of the planet? It's because it's designed to appeal to a broad audience. And I'll give you an example. So, like, Michael Bay's Transformer movies and stuff like that. And I'll get back to the original topic once it's related, if you just believe me while I kind of go through and explain it. But the thing is like, Transformers, like, one person is asking, like, why is the humor in that movie, like, so childish and retarded? It's because he says, well, it's designed to use humor that, like, an international audience can understand. Like, everybody can understand. So childish humor is so simplistic and stupid is because it's designed to appeal to a broad audience, okay? And so, you know, the thing about it is, like, you might think it's just, like, purely women doing this, you know, effect, right? But it's just normifications, because the fact is, oh, you might offend the sensibilities of one particular group, and so therefore we have to take it down, because we have to appeal to as broad of an audience as possible, right? You know, it's like Michael Bay's Transformers. And, you know, as a consequence of that, you get this kind of soulless heap of garbage that is offensive to nobody, but appeases nobody as well, right? You know, and that's kind of thing, like, with anime. What anime is going down that same rabbit hole too, is because the fact is...
That is phenomenal. I do agree with that. I do entertainment becoming more bland, declining. But that actually sort of proves my point, because what's going on with the feminist invasion is not... no, it doesn't. Because let me explain why, please. Normification, right? What's going on with feminists is not normification. So they introduce girl bosses into stuff repeatedly, and not just strong, independent women, not just girl bosses. They introduce female characters that are ball-busting and emotionally invalidating to the male characters.
Yes, I remember that. That was, like, very common in, like, the 2000s. Like, the husband was always this, you know, baffling idiot.
Yes, it's still going on, though. They still do it. So it can't be a mistake. It can't be, oh, they're trying to diversify and appeal to a female audience. That can't be the motive, because it keeps on failing, and they keep on doing it over and over again. So it's not normification. It's a separate thing. It's feminists who've hijacked, and they're trying to promote a political agenda, right?
Yeah.
They want to capture. They want to capture the levers of power, and culture is one of those levers of power. They consider culture very important. And this is a conscious. Yes, it's a cult. So it's a conscious political decision. It's not normification. In fact, this girl boss stuff. If normification, if it's mass appeal as possible, they'll go, all right, this is a mistake. Let's put a kibosh on it. They still do it.
Well, here's kind of thing, like, the mass normification. I do want to say, just because, like, things have been normified is, like, you know, it's not that the funny part is, in the process of normifying things, they become soulless. Like, that's the entire thesis of what I was trying to say earlier, is because the fact is that as it appeals to a broader audience, you know, the less risky it is on taking decisions on certain ideas, and so therefore it's inoffensive to nobody, but it also appeals to nobody on, like, any spiritual level, right? And so that's kind of like what I'm talking about, is, like, while it becomes, like, appealing to a broader audience in a sort of way, it's not.
All right, so I understand, yeah, but one point out is that the feminists hijacking the girl boss stuff, right? The destruction of male characters, like in Star Wars, right?
Yeah, character assassination.
Though.
Oh
Yes,
yeah,
that's not
like, oh yeah,
notification,
you're right
that's-
about that one because I remember like seeing like Star Wars Episode 8 or whatever, and like I saw like I remember seeing this back when I was a right-wing libertarian, and like the woman had purple hair, and I made the joke and called her Admiral Gender Studies at the time, you know, because it was like, of course, 2017. But like that's kind of the thing. It's like I remember that those movies sucked ass. They didn't sell well. They were garbage. And by Episode 9, like J.J. Abrams, I remember when they said J.J. Abrams was going to save that movie. And it turned out like he couldn't actually write an original story to save his life, which, you know, all he did was bring back Palpatine, which I didn't watch that movie. I thought it was retarded.
Yes, the thing is, notification, the decline of, because I do think there's a decline of culture in general, but I think it's a sort of separate issue. The feminist hijacking of culture is a separate thing. It's like something that just it's done regardless, and it's like also, I personally think a lot of feminists are just very spiteful, and they just don't like men, and they want to destroy stuff that men like. They want to destroy the fandoms, like Crunchyroll, for example, and Funimation. That's been taken over by feminists as well. They'll just randomly remove series they don't like for ideological reasons, or they'll give dubbing, promote feminism. It's in video games as well. Like Anita Sarkeesian is still being hired as an advisor on video games.
Yeah, dude, I remember Anita Sarkeesian back from last decade. Yeah, and that's kind of the funny part is like, you know, things are bad when like even like her. Oh, what the hell are these? These things are weird as shit. I'm being attacked by these weird crawly things. But yeah, no, that's kind of thing. I remember Anita Sarkeesian, and the funny part is she started like 90% of the stuff, especially like back in the day, you know, when she was basically trying to get video games pulled for misogyny or some shit. And, you know, I like how everything on the internet has effectively been downstream of that event on the internet.
Yes. I'll look through the collective web shout.
Collective Shout. Oh yeah, I remember Collective Shout. They're an obnoxious group.
I went through the website, and they've been going since 2014. They were talking about age verification years ago, as well, right? And it was basically the same narrative. It was similar narrative to Anita Sarkeesian. Video games are misogyny. Video games are sexist. And they were anti-porn as well. Porn is violent. Porn is full of rape. Blah blah blah. This is a long-term thing, and men don't seem to be aware of it. This is long-term. This is long-term coordinated political action, and it's successful. I live in a country, literally, I might have to dox myself to use my own mobile phone soon if they bring in these laws.
Yeah, because you're from the UK with all that like age verification shit. That shit's so ass.
Yeah,
I'm gonna Fed post for a little bit, but like we need to expel the World Economic Forum from the United States and drive them out of the country. Because like honestly, I don't want that shit here. Like, you know, honestly, like strap them to rockets and launch them into the sun. That's my take about the World Economic Forum, Larry Fink. I think Larry Ellison should have his citizen stripped and he should be dumped into the Ganges River. That's my take, right? You know, fuck that guy. You know, he's gonna lay off a bunch of American workers, do all this digital ID shit. I think his last days on Earth should be being dunked in to the Ganges River like a cookie and milk, dude. Like, that's my take. Let's get some green hats in the chat. Let's get some, like, you know, Luigi hats in the chat for that guy. Fuck him.
Okay, so but the thing is, this is linked to feminism. Right, these elites, they use feminism and they pander to feminism as well. Feminism. So I'm anti-imperialist because I know there's a lot of. So I'm against the Ukraine war. I'm against Zionists. I'm against imperialism. I've been against war because I'm 44. I've been against war. I've been protesting against war since the early 2000s. Right, so I've got a long-term systematic understanding of this. Right, like all these things, imperialism, neoliberalism, it's actually linked to feminism. Okay, this is what a lot of people don't understand. Feminism is actually not left-wing. It's neoliberal, and it's actually right-wing, but it invades left-wing spaces and hijacks them and destroys them from within.
Yep, it certainly does.
And the fact that so welcoming to feminism is so weird to me. They welcome it with open arms. Yeah, there's like, can I give you an example? Like the worst examples. Like a feminist government, the feminist government got elected. I think it was Finland. It was a feminist government. Okay, they got elected and they joined NATO, and it's a feminist government where it only drafts men and women don't get drafted. So a feminist government is putting literally men at risk of war and dying in a war, and it's a feminist government. Okay, and it's like feminist. Like a Shield for Men did a video about this. It was like it's a deep dive that most people don't do. Like there's links between imperialism and feminist organisations and NGOs. This NGO complex, all feminists, like these reshaping.
The funny part is that, like, you know, if you look at the Anglosphere, this is a unique Anglosphere thing, right? If you want to know, like, who's used, like, you know, feminist movements for, like, undercurrent shit to, like, get shady shit done, it is 100% the Anglosphere. Like, that's what I was trying to tell City Crusher in the last discussion. It's like, who sponsored the white feather movement to shame young, men into dying for the British Empire? It was quite literally Admiral Fitzgerald that used the insecurities of young men to die in war for them, right? That's kind of the thing. This isn't new. They've used these talking points for ages,
Yeah,
Wonder
but,
what the fuck
yeah,
that
but
thing
the women go along with it though. It's not like they're being
I know.
brainwashed against the will. They're going along with it. So
Not all of them, but the thing is, like,
doesn't
some of them do, and they're incredibly dumb, and then they end up, like, having to deal with the consequences of being a puppet. It's kind of like the progressive left. The progressive left was used for years by these corporations, and they comfortably kind of went along with it until, like, Larry Fink literally went on stage saying, well, like, the woke was a failed experiment, and then the progressive left got thrown under the bus when it was at the height of unpopularity, right? Like, eventually, like, the consequences, people do reap the consequences of their own stupidity.
So can I ask some questions? Sorry, so how do white feather women suffer from shoving men into war and dying?
And Anita Sarkeesian is
curious.
probably the like de facto picture of like the unpopular woman on the internet. Like she just like that's the consequences of it, man. She's made fun of like pretty much universally on the internet.
But she's
Hello,
winning.
fellow members of my favorite honeypot on the internet. What's up, man, dude? I had to have a little bit of glow posting. I couldn't hold it back. I had to have some negative opinions about Larry Ellison, man. I can't hold it back, man.
Sorry. Isn't Anita Sarkeesian winning though? Like she
Anita
she's a
Sarkeesian's.
consultant. She's filthy rich.
No, yeah, absolutely. It's because she's working with like these elites. Yeah, absolutely. I believe it.
Yes, so she's networking with feminists. Like it's not just the elite, it's the feminist networking. They obviously get each other jobs as well.
Yeah, they do.
They're politically aligned. They use entryist tactics and they get each other jobs. They've taken over so many fields. So the focus on the elites is a bit misdirected.
Well, it's not like there's not like a collective of like feminist women pulling the strings. This is just what the ruling class does, and that's what I'm trying to get. It's like I'm not trying to absolve like women of some stupid shit that they do, but like look at who's pulling the strings.
I actually disagree with you. I disagree with you because I think the elites pander to women. They pander to feminists.
Yeah, I mean because they can get an easy base with them. Yeah.
Yes, but it doesn't matter much. So women benefit from it then. At the cost of men?
Nominally, I don't think they benefit as much as like people would say they were, because the fact is, it's like to get like the level of kind of like discontentment from young men nowadays is probably not worth it as much. Like even like that's why I say it's like you don't really see on like an independent like a person-to-person level like the crazy feminist bullshit like you saw like 10 years ago, right? On a personal level, it's like maybe I'm missing it, maybe I'm out of touch, maybe I could just be an out-of-touch fucking dipshit millennial, but I just don't see it as much as I used to.
Okay. The thing is, literally, there's a woman. There's a news story. There's a woman in the UK. She was jealous of her boyfriend, and he ran him over and killed him, and she didn't go to jail. She's convicted, and she didn't go to jail. She didn't get any jail time. Right?
Yeah.
There's sentencing guidelines to avoid jailing women as much as possible. That's systematic.
Yeah, that's
discrimination
still a common thing. If you want to talk about that as like a cultural thing, like how women are absolved of crimes, like they get like 40% of the sentence of a man. Like I could agree with you on that one. Like that's something I've never forgotten, really.
It's a cultural thing that seeped into the mechanisms of the state. It's institutional.
That's how it works,
now.
yeah.
So
yeah, it always comes from the cultural and then eventually the legal. So
yes, it's been formalized legally, right?
Yeah.
It's been made legal. So it's getting worse. It's getting more like like the T app. Have you ever heard of the T app?
Dude, that T app backfired so hard. That I know which one you're talking about. You're talking about where they're basically creating like dossiers of men that they didn't like, and that just backfired because it took.
I know this fairly good-looking guy online, and he has one-night stands, or he was having one-night stands. He's good-looking, and he was doxed on the T app, right? And I won't say who he is, and it's just complete bullshit as well. What they said about him, complete made-up nonsense. A lot of it disprovable, and literally, he's terrified. Basically, he's terrified because he got a bad reputation. And the women are doing this openly, and it's not being taken down. It's a doxing and harassment app.
Yeah, I know. Like it was basically Kiwi Farms, but for like angry women. Like that's kind of the thing. That's all it was, because essentially it was just a glorified doxing.
I wouldn't even say angry women. I wouldn't even say angry, sadistic women. You don't necessarily have to be angry to do it. Like a lot of them are just doing it for shits and giggles. Like if psychopaths, like Kiwi Farms, a lot of those people they're sadists and psychopaths, and they're doing it for shits and giggles as well. So it's the same motive. Like if you allow psychopaths to get away with it, they're gonna do it. They don't have to be angry. They just do it for fun.
Yeah.
So I think you're sort of underestimating systematic misandry. It's not a. You seem to think it's like in decline or something. I don't. If that's what you actually believe, that's the impression I get from what you're saying. Am I correct there?
I could be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong on that one, is because the fact is there are certain things like cultural double standards. I mean, I still like disagree with to this day. Like, you know, so I could be wrong, but just like from my own personal experience, I could be wrong on this one. I'm not a red pill channel. I still talk primarily about cost of living crisis stuff, but you know, one guy wanted to chat and have an interview about some older videos, and I said, sure, why not? Because I pretty much chat with anybody. So, not a red pill channel. Thing about women is that not only are their best tools changing the wider society, but many of them are also easily malleable by their peers. Yeah, that's true.
So our group's not part of the red pill either. We're distinct from the red pill. We actually reject the red pill. Yes, good. So we're not part of the manosphere either. We reject it because there's long-term. First of all, it's too right-wing. It's got a very faulty ideology. It's full of pick-up artistry advice.
Pickup artistry was one of the things I walked away first and foremost, because like I'm gonna be a bit of an asshole, like PUAs, especially like scamsas, like side of the aisle and stuff like that. Yes, this is why I'm kind of probably more in the lookism like camp of like why looks matter and stuff like that, is because the fact is I remember going to like one of those circles and like unironically it was kind of pathetic because I met someone like, I don't mean to be rude, but like, you know, they were the incel groups, like the incel groups, they would show their face and stuff like that, and they'd be like some like, you know, fake cell or something like that. They would actually be incredibly attractive, but they weren't even ugly, but they were saying like, I can't get any women, bro, I must be ugly, and they're like 6'3" or something like that. They've got a chiseled jaw or something like, dude, you're not an incel, you're just insecure. And then you go to like the red pill ones and they got the ugliest fucking men possible telling you how to be a man, and it's like this bizarre like night and day thing between like red pill communities and black pill communities.
Yes. Well, the thing is, status is the most important thing for a man getting a relationship. It's the primary thing. Right.
I disagree with you on that one, but we can have like an endless conversation. I'd rather have that conversation later.
Okay, I can link you to Shield for Men videos. He's done. There's been metadata and studies on this. It's pretty conclusive as far as and it's from my anecdotal personal experience, because personally I'm unemployed, right? Okay, so I'm 44. And I've had ups and downs in my romantic life, and looking back at it, it's been linked to that. And it's with other people as well. Like because I've known people like how comes the fat Iranian lawyer who got divorced, who's in his mid-50s, who's ugly, how comes he lands a blonde wife in his 30s 6 months later? And I see good-looking men who are unemployed or underemployed, right, in their teens or in their early 20s, and they haven't got status yet, and they can't get a girlfriend. The pattern's too obvious.
I see. See, I disagree with that. It's like you're telling me like an attractive chap can't get a girlfriend, even though he's like technically low status, he doesn't have a job and stuff like that. I was like, have you seen like women complaining about like deadbeat boyfriends that are like, you know, they can't keep a job but they're still with them is because they're attractive and stuff like that? That's like a real phenomenon.
Yeah, but I've seen women complain about it, but then the relationship ends and they move on, or they complain about a former relationship and that's why the relationship ends. One of the biggest risk factors, one of the biggest risk factors of divorce is a man losing his job.
That used to be the case. That's the funny part. Like, here's the thing, okay? Because, like, the thing is, you gotta understand, there's generational differences at play, okay? So, like, within the boomer generation, I'm gonna be honest, right, with you, because boomers and, like, Gen X, no offense to City Crusher and stuff like that, right? Their generation was the generation where that was the expected norm. Like, you were expected to be the breadwinner, protector, provider, whatever, right? You know, it's kind of making back a comeback culturally, but can't fully because of economic reasons. But the thing is that expectation was a much more stronger, like, you know, cultural, like, phenomena, like, you know, back in those generations than it is with these generations. And the thing is that, like, when people say it's all about status, it's a reflection of the time where that was the expectation, where then a lot of those men also ended up getting divorced, you know, raped, and, you know, they went through a horrible time with the legal system, and they lost their houses and all that sort of stuff, right? And so the thing is, like, when people say it's purely status, or, like, largely status, I'm gonna go with largely because I don't want to straw man here, right? You know, it's more or less a reflection of when those were the incentive structures of those times, right? Which is why you see, like, the Gen Zer types and the younger types talking more about black pill stuff, is because now that women have economic agency to some degree, you know, they're not going to a man for resources because they don't need a man for resources. They can go to somebody that they're attracted to is because instead of money.
Can we break this down? Let's break this down. So, yes, women are not just getting economic agency; they're actually getting economic privilege over men now, because there's affirmative action and they're doing better in higher education and in the workplace. I'm not aware of any study done on gender hiring. I know a Reddit experiment, but I know studies about education. But there's female teachers down mocking boys in schools for the same work, right? Someone did a Reddit experiment. I know it's not a proper experiment, but I'm not aware of any experiments, so it's all we have. So he did female CVs and he did male CVs, and I think like this female CVs got like magnitude more replies, more interest. So so women have got economic privilege over men now. Okay.
So that's kind of the funny part. It's like, you know, like that's an economic privilege, because I've even talked about it in my videos, like where you'll have like white boomer men hiring like infinite, like, you know, Indians and like foreign labor to replace like young white men, but then they'll also hire like infinite like young women, and they'll just like completely screw over younger generations of men. Like that's a real phenomenon. Like, by the way, I agree with you on that one.
Okay, so there's less sex than ever. More and more men are deselected than ever, and there's less sex going on than ever, according to studies that I've seen. Right. So that means, due to female hypergamy, if men don't fit those standards, those men are just going to be completely deselected, and women are having less sex than ever as well. And and I think, look, women can find a man attractive. And here's another thing: is that women can find a man attractive. Men and women are different as well. Women have got more power sexuality, in my opinion. Right. So if a man finds a woman attractive and if she's interested, she'll go, "Oh, this is my chance." A woman will go, "He's interesting. I might go with him. I might not." So just because a woman finds a low stakes man attractive doesn't necessarily mean he's going to go with him, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like it could, like, but the thing is, like, what I was trying to say, it's like, you know, because like City Crusher was kind of pointing that out on his like last video that he made and uploaded this morning about like, you know, the like a whole alpha thing. It's like it's just like, this isn't new. It's like alpha fox, beta box. Like that's an old term. That's not anything new. And so like that's kind of thing. You're right. They might not necessarily stick with them for like a long-term relationship, but yeah, you're right. You know, because the fact is they're financially insecure.
Yeah, it's a redundant term though, because all beta box implies that there's like men who pander to women incorrectly and the losers. All men in relationships pander to women.
The thing is, it depends. Okay, here's kind of thing. Like when I talk about simps and beta boxers, okay, you know, men who quite literally, because I've seen it countless times, time and time again from my own experience. Okay, you know, they'll be like a well-intentioned guy. They're like, oh, this woman loves me and stuff like that. I want to give her the world and stuff like that. She barely tolerates his ass, and he just opens up his wallet and just gives like everything. And then, like, you know, as soon as like she finds somebody else, he just like leaves him and moves on with somebody else, and you're just like surprised by that one, right? And it's like you try to tell a guy like that, it's like, dude, you don't want to be the pay pig, you don't want to be the beta boxer. It's like, you know, just ignore her. You know, she's gonna friend zone you anyways. She just wants your resources. They're not gonna turn down, you know, free shit. But like that's kind of the thing. It's like, you know, you try to tell somebody and they just don't even listen to you, and they just keep doing it, and you know, like completely oblivious. And worst of all, they'll just like accuse you of being jealous. What's up, Wilson? Welcome to the chat.
Yes, there was this MGTOW called Human, right? And he used to give MGTOW advice, right? He was complaining about women and dating all the time. Okay, Mix, but we don't talk about it too much. And we don't complain about it because it is what it is. But Human was complaining about dating dynamics and how it sucks over it. It's not a political thesis. It's not a political position.
Yeah.
So he's just talking about it over and over again. And then he got married. And then he started attacking his MGTOW audience as losers and misogynists. And I said, oh yeah, you got emotional problems. You just need to open up. And I'm thinking,
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Okay, so here's the funny part about like opening up, because like I want to talk about that one, like the whole opening up stuff. Okay, let's talk about being vulnerable. Okay, because that's kind of an interesting thing. Okay, because like people, I've noticed that like a lot of guys, it's like when it comes to a partner, they would love to be vulnerable to their partner and stuff like that. Okay, now here's the thing. Like, that's going to be the automatic tester on whether or not a woman actually likes you. Okay, if she's willing to accept you in a vulnerable position, then she probably loves you. Okay, but the thing is if she's not, then she's like, you know, irritated by it, finds your thing an inconvenience, you probably got a woman who is gonna like divorce rape you in the future, and she doesn't like you, and she's with you for some other reason. Like, you got to be able to read for these types of things, right? Just because there is a significant difference.
Yeah, but the problem is, like, a woman can love you and feel affection for you, and then she can still not like you later and still divorce you later. There's nothing stopping that.
That's happens. Some people change. Like, you can't control the future. That, like, what I'm not. You can't control the future. That's not something you should try to control the future, because things happen. Maybe you just want to separate in the future for whatever reason.
Can I say another thing as well?
Go for it.
So a lot of men get married. All right. So a lot of men have got very low partner counts. Right. So a lot of men.
It's especially true nowadays. Gen Z just doesn't like really get laid, I suppose.
That's the first experience of women, right? So I was very inexperienced with women. I'm 44 now. I was very inexperienced with women into my late 20s. So what I learned from my experience, I learned how to pick up when women were attracted to me, right? And before that, because no one explained this to me, I was totally oblivious, right? I was totally oblivious. So I'm just assuming there's going to be men who's just totally oblivious to this. They won't be able to pick up the woman who's not attracted to them at all. They won't be able
That's
to
the
pick up on
thing.
it.
That's the thing. And that's the thing. It's like, you know, if you try to pick up
Yeah.
the woman that is not attractive to you, it's going to go south. Okay, because there's two ways it's going to end. Okay, you try to pick up the woman that's not attracted to you, you're going to get just completely ignored. Yeah, whatever, hurt feelings. But the worst part is, what if she capitulates to you and you end up in a relationship with somebody who's just not even like interested in you in the first place? What's up, Smith? Welcome to the chat. The thing is that like the consequences of that are worse. Like, so like here's my thesis. Like when the fucking you know, douchebag bully in the high school movie told you, you know, she's out of your league. You know, the bully's not telling you that to, like, you know, say that, like, there's some hidden woman that's super attractive that, you know, you're gonna get, but I'm just gonna block you. It's more or less, like, recognizing the fact is, like, even if you got this woman, you're gonna be with a woman who's never gonna actually be attracted to you, she's never gonna like you, and you're probably gonna end up a beta buxer for the rest of your days, and she's gonna cheat on you. Like, that's just a fact of life.
Again, the term beta, it comes from the term beta bucks comes from the term beta male, which is a pseudoscience. There's no such thing as beta males.
Sure.
Because beta bucks. Yes, the thing is, a beta buck. Again, it's a redundant term because all men, high status men, good-looking men, athletic men, professional men, good-looking men, ugly men, they all pander to women. That's the core dynamic relationships between men and women. Men pander to women.
Attractive men?
Yes, attractive. Yes, I knew a good-looking. I don't want to get too anecdotal. I knew a good-looking football player personally. He wasn't too famous, but I knew him. He was pandering to his wife. Why do you think they're popular? Do you think it's because their looks that they're athletic? Yeah.
That is definitely anecdotal, is because like they actually did a study and.
Let me put it this way. This is the way to put it. So this explain. Controlling for all things being equal. All things being equal, the woman will go for the better looking man. So if all men were the same status, they'll go for the better looking man or the man they find attractive.
That's my point. But if that man has like a ton of options, if that man has a ton of options to choose whatever woman he wants, like why would he care about appealing to their sensibilities? It's like with women when they go on like, you know, Tinder or whatever, right? And they can just swipe left like infinitely or stuff like that. An attractive man who gets a ton of attention from women has the ability to be selective. Like, you know, that's the point. That's why I don't necessarily say like, oh, he's going to pander to women. He doesn't have to. And more often than not, attractive men don't.
Yeah, but those men, first of all, those men are an extreme outlier. And I also think good men.
You're right. By definition, they're on the extreme outlier of being attractive. You're right.
Yes, I don't think they sleep around as much as people think. And also, here's another thing I've noticed as well. This is just my observation as well, because I just look at celebrities and I look at their behaviour just out of interest. So there's high-status celebrity men, right, who bang groupies, especially rock stars. They bang lots of groupies. They bang thousands of women. They still get married. They still pair bond with one woman at the end of the day.
Maybe people want to settle down. Maybe they find something special with somebody. You know, you never know.
Yes.
Shield. That's garbage.
So men are psychologically inclined to pair bond, and so
I believe NPCs could be engineered in the population. I like that. Oh, this guy, what the heck? Skeleton, huh?
So anyway, so they still can get married, they still can get divorce rates. So this idea that this Chad that's humping and dumping women, right, and they got all the power because they're so good looking. I don't think that's true. I don't see it really.
Yeah, I disagree with you on that one, because the fact is, it's like there's been I can't figure it out, find it right now, but the thing is, I do remember reading a study that, like, you know, attractive men tend to be like a lot more misogynistic, and the only thing I could kind of infer from that study is because the fact is, you know, attractive men have the pick of the litter, they can just, you know, afford to be like assholes. So it's just
okay. What this study? So what did he mean by misogynistic? Because this is. Meaning
that they probably said something that, like, you know, that would not be acceptable if any other guy did it. Okay, like that's what I mean. But that's what they probably mean too. That's just my assumption, you know, based on that stuff.
Right, okay, the problem with the term misogyny because it's watered down and it's meaningless.
Well, I mean, I agree. That's why I was trying to say that for like this study, is that like it could just mean the fact that the guy has like no patience for like, you know, like mid women. Like that's it.
So like. Misogyny doesn't mean hatred of women anymore. It could mean not worshipping women, not respecting them, not believing them. Like, can I give you an example?
In the 2010s, that was certainly the case. If you said anything like slightly negative about women, it was like considered misogynistic. I still remember when The Amazing Atheist did like the whole like, you know, your boyfriend is a misogynist if he does X or Y or whatever, right? Okay. I don't know if anybody remembers that video.
So again, I don't believe in Chad, basically. Like Chad is an extreme outlier that's meaningless. I don't believe in Chad. I honestly don't. Like, there's obviously men who are more successful with women and others who are less, but this caricature of Chad is a mass exaggeration. to be honest.
Yeah.
And like, also,
I agree.
there's-
It's an
there's another-
exaggeration. because it is a hyperbolic meme at the end of the day. But go on.
So I don't believe in alpha widow either. That's another manosphere concept. That's nonsense. Because the alpha widow is basically women are undateable because Chad banged her and ruined her, and she's bitter and she's upset, and he was betrayed by him, basically, and she can never.
There's like TikToks of women doing that. Like that, like unironically, no offense.
Yeah, but you know, women play the victim on the TikTok, right? A lot of women play the victim.
No, I don't think that they're just playing the
example,
victim on that one. I actually do think that does happen. Like the whole alpha widow phenomena is like.
Yeah. I don't believe in the alpha widow. I honestly don't, because women get less attached to men in relationships, from what I can see. They can be sad, they can be upset, but men are absolutely devastated a lot of the time. That's why divorced men commit suicide four times more than the general population. Like women who divorce have no spike in suicides, 0. And women, it's shown that women break up relationships more than studies. They're the ones that end relationships like 80% of the time.
The whole alpha widow thing, like the thing about the alpha widow thing is that like I'm gonna have to fundamentally disagree with you on that one, is because the fact is it's like everybody wants an attractive partner, okay? Like the difference is that like when it comes to like, you know, attractive partners, like, you know, the alpha widow and stuff like that, right? You know, they get hung up about that is because they thought there was something going on there, right? You know, if a man like tries to go like for a super attractive woman or whatever, right? He goes way out of his league, he's just likely gonna just get ignored, okay? You know, there's not gonna be any putting out in that one, right? You know, when it comes to like, you know, the alpha widow, that ends up being the case and they mistake that. So find women in your league. Agreed.
Can I point out a fallacy that I think you're committing there? I think you're committing the looks match fallacy, right? Because
okay, you know what? I can accept that.
Right, because what the woman looks like doesn't really have anything to do with what she's attracted to. So a decent-looking or average-looking woman, or even slightly ugly-looking woman, can still be selective, and they still won't go for a low-status man. And men are less fussy than women in looks as well. And also, a lot of attraction is pheromones anyway. If the man is average-looking, he smells nice, I think the woman's gonna be fine. The pheromones are compatible.
Yeah, like that's kind of thing. Like the whole looks match thing. 'Cause, like we've all seen like those images of like people just kind of inflating like their friends, like, you know, SMV, if you want to call them that or whatever, right? We've all like I think everybody's seen that. So like, you know, people do bullshit, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know, like you can't gaslight, you know, like somebody that they're attractive or they're unattractive. If somebody has like a significant, like, you know, significantly ugly, they got a birth defect or whatever, that actually like really like hinders them finding a partner and stuff like that. It's like, you know, you can have your buddies try and like updo you to make it look like you're more attractive than you actually are, but at the end of the day, it's like the other person's got to accept that. You know what I mean? And that's kind of thing. When it comes to looks, I'm not saying looks are end all be all. Like, you know, you can be ugly. It's not the end of the world, but and you can still find a partner. It's just the thing is it's going to be harder, right? And the one thing I don't like about, and the reason I'm more of a black pillar on this, is because I personally want society to be more honest about looks playing a role in things and saying, you know what, attractive people do have an easier time. And so the thing is, instead of trying to gaslight, especially men, that looks don't matter, telling that looks do matter, and stop gaslighting that they're like a lesser human being is because they can't score like high-value women or some nonsense like that. So
right, they can't score women at all. It's not high-value women. They can't score women at all, right?
Especially with Gen Z, it's kind of wild world. You know, that's been the weirdest thing to me, is because I like the first woman I dated was when I was 15, and then I hear like Gen Z just can't even get like a woman at like, you know, 20s. It's like, it's just night and day. I'm a late millennial. I don't know. It's a weird one to me. We live in such a weird world.
I dated a woman and then I had like a 12-year gap. I dated a woman at 15 and I had like a 12-year gap.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean anything. Okay, so
I'm not going
to show my face. I know this sounds arrogant and narcissistic, but I've been told many times. So I'm actually good looking, right? Like countless people have told me I'm good looking, especially when I was younger, right? I've had a miserable life and I've had barely any success with women. Like my entire 20s was completely dry on, more or less, right? So and like. Also, this is going to sound crass, right? So I'm talking to like incels because I'm trying to educate them out their false ideology, and they go, "Oh yeah, you need a big penis. Women are attracted to big penis," and I've got a big penis.
I'm gonna be honest. Just because I'm a black pillar doesn't mean I'm gonna say I like agree with everything like every black pillar says on the internet. Because there are some genuinely stupid fucking people who'll draw lines all over your face and be like, "This person's a Chad."
Yes, but there's assumptions that they make. So if we're this and we're this, we're going to be successful women. No, men, because it's not really an individual thing, right? There's individual variants, but collectively as a whole, right? Men are less successful with women. There's less women getting romantic with women, right? Because men as a whole are low status because they're being driven out of the job market and they're being driven out of higher education.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, because like the funny part is that like I was gonna concede like previously is because like my entire channel's been talking about the cost of living crisis and how that's pretty much destroyed like most guys, you know, ability to start a family and settle down and own a home and stuff like that. Because like status does certainly play a role, like culturally at the very least. And like, you know, a lot of people, especially these days, are getting an absolute raw deal when it comes to like actually having a chance in modern society because the cost. Yeah, the negative canthal tilt. 35-degree jaw angle. I was about to make that meme, no name, but you beat me to the punch on that one. But the thing is that, like, you know, based on the status thing and the cultural expectations, young men are getting completely screwed over by the cost of living crisis. So
it's the cost, and they get hit with the cost of living crisis, and it's a double whammy because they're being discriminated against in the job market very, very badly, very badly. All the high status white collar jobs are going to go to women. And like, men are going to be the working class. Men are basically the proletariat right now, and women are the bourgeoisie. That's what's going on. And it's going to get worse.
A new movement will be formed from the failures of the manosphere and the right. Absolutely. I think there's going to be a different kind of movement that's more pro-working class. I do think that's kind of inevitably on the horizon when it comes to this stuff, because the fact is the right and the manosphere are just completely incapable of addressing the issues that are going on today. Especially the job market. The job market is ass, dude. Oh my God.
Yes, and also, and the thing is, it's not just dating as well. So dating is a byproduct. Lack of dating is a byproduct, and a byproduct of something else, of being low status. So a low status man is not just going to be relationshipless. He's going to have less friends, and he's going to have less life choices. Right? He's going to have smaller social circles and no social circles. He's more likely to get isolated. He's more likely to take drugs. He's more likely to take alcohol. He's more likely to commit suicide. So a man's status is actually very important.
Is that what he said? He said 12-year-old, bro? Dude, the chat's got a question. He said 12-year-old, bro. Like, what did you mean? What's that exactly? What's the chat asking? It was that when you were dating, you start with 12? I thought you said 15.
No. So I dated a girl. No. I
can't hear you, Mike.
I was in boarding school at 12. No, I dated a girl. I had my first time with a girl when I was 15, and she was abusive to me, right? And then
when you were 15. Is that what you guys were asking in the chat? Like, you know, what age when he's dated? Because I heard 15. Maybe the stream's a little bit odd or something like that,
I was 15.
you know.
I was 15, actually.
Yeah, he was 15. Okay.
And I didn't date until I think my late 20s again, basically. Because anyway, because I've been unemployed. I think I've been underemployed, unemployed. I've been mentally ill. I was shut in for like 6 months once, stuff like that. So, so anyway. I don't want to I shouldn't personalize too much, but anyway. So anyway, the point I was trying to make is like just because you have something when you're young doesn't mean it's not like a skill you learn and then you suddenly get a skill and you can get women or women. It's just.
You said 12-year gap with your girlfriend. Did you say 12-year gap with your girlfriend, or did you like what was the deal?
No. 12-year gap between being with another girl, more or less. With a few exceptions.
Okay, so you were 15 and like she was like 12 years older than you, so like 27 or something.
No. She was 15 as well.
Okay, so you were both 15. So where did the 12 come from, guys?
She was both 15. This is weird though. She told me she lost her virginity at 12. It was very weird, but anyway, she was a very weird girl. But anyway, and she was very abusive and violent and very and very strange. Anyway, it didn't do me any good. The thing is, I was desperate to get with a girl for some weird reason, even though I was 15, and I shouldn't have done it. But whatever. But
I don't know why my audio is so fucking retarded right now, because it just keeps hearing you cut out.
That's part of my chaotic childhood.
No problem, Resident Badass.
That's part of my chaotic childhood as well. So anyway, well, the point I was trying to make. So men are being discriminated against in the job market. They're being discriminated against in higher education. They're less likely to be hired. Right? There's affirmative action, which is structural violence against men. Affirmative action. The thing is. So
I don't know why my audio is so retarded.
I'm not against the concept of short-term affirmative action for ethnic groups, but it's never been applied to women whatsoever. Period.
Yeah.
Right. So women get affirmative action and they push men out of the job market. So this is why this is an injustice. So
You know, the latest
women do
post
not-
of mine literally talked about that, because the fact is, like, there is a cultural double standard about that fact. I even just watched Dave Ramsey do this shit. It's like, you know, unironically, a guy came on the stream talking about how his girlfriend has a bunch of debt, whether or not you should go through with it. And the funny part is, Dave Ramsey's all about, like, paying off your debt, not being a burden on society, doing things your own way. And then he went total, like, you know, absolute fucking, you know, we need to bail her out. You need to pay for all of her debt or something like that,
Yes.
right? So like that's the double standard. Like that's the core of the issue why like so many young men become very resentful, is because imagine being your entire life being told that you have to man up, be tough, all this sorts of stuff. Nobody's got your back. You've got to watch out for yourself. And then like, you know, as soon as like, you know, it comes to women, right? All of a sudden we as a society need to collectively bail out women. And that's not to say like, you know, women shouldn't have like social democratic policies or we shouldn't care for people and stuff like that. But you can't, you know, deny the fact that that goes into a large role on like why young men become bitter, you know, and probably hate.
Yes, it's a double whammy, because this is the double whammy. So men have these expectations on them. They've got to have status, to have social circles, and have girlfriends. And wives are very important. There's still high status social circles where you need a wife to fit in. Wives are actually very important in some socials. Like Prego, you did a video. They were trying to convince men to marry, right? And one of the benefits of marrying, they basically says, oh, you're more likely to be hired and seen as more reliable, and you're more likely to fit in social circles.
Yeah, that's the cultural stuff I was talking about,
Yeah, so it's a roundabout way of saying if you don't get married, you can be excluded. That's what it means.
That's essentially, and that's kind of thing. It's like you got to understand, like that's a part of like the social capital of like being in a heterosexual relationship, like you know, being like showing that you're part of like the group or whatever, right? You know, it sucks. It is what it is, but like,
I'm leading. I don't want to. So the point I'm leading to is, men have these expectations, women don't. So it's a double whammy. So women get affirmative action. They end up getting more of these jobs. They're getting more places in university, right? The men are getting pushed out, so it's a double whammy. So they've got social stigma. They're seen as losers. They're seen like that thing of pop star,
I know.
right?
That's why I talked about it on my channel so much. Like that's why I talked about that exact thing. And the funny part is that like nobody wants to talk about this. The right doesn't want to talk about it. Both the right and the mainstream left will completely ignore about it and just play the shame games that they usually do against men. What's up, man?
Sorry to cut you guys
I do
off
when
for a
it's-
second.
Yeah,
Drew
what's up,
wants
Gamma?
to join in.
I'd rather keep it between us for now, but you know, like maybe in a little bit.
So
Yeah,
so
I'm just
anyway.
asking. So
Yeah, I'll bring him in later, maybe.
So anyway, these social dynamics, are a double whammy on men and completely unfair. And when men voice men voice these problems, right? When men voice these problems, they get called an incel.
Oh yeah, I know. I remember that. Like that's kind of thing. You would have your manhood attacked if you were to protest these things. Like I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So basically, like for example, if someone's giving like bad dating advice, with like generic bad dating advice, that's just false. Because I do have some life experience now, because I'm 44 now. I have life experience of dating now. I know what's going on, right? So if I call out bad dating advice, I'll just get called an incel. Or bad relationship advice, or bad marriage advice. I'll just go, oh, you're an incel.
No. I'll tell you. Okay, everything I've talked about, like about how to select for a partner, how to not be a beta boxer, ignore like women who are like that and stuff like that. You know, I've been called an incel for that stuff before too. I don't really compromise that, because at the end of the day, it's like, why would I consider myself? Why would I ever want to appeal to the people who don't even like me in the first place, right? That's the thing. That's the way I look at it, okay?
All right, I want to get to the core thesis about ideology, because you're still using the term beta box, and I realise why you're making that mistaken, using that mistaken term. Okay. I want to ask you a question, right? Who are dominant in society? Who are dominant in society, men or women?
I'm gonna say there's not really one or the other at this point, to be honest, and it's more or less just like the people at the top of society, the ruling class, like the wealthy, if you want to call it that, the Epstein class, whatever, right? You know, that's what I'm gonna tell you, but you might not agree with it.
Okay. So, all right. The common sense consensus is that men are dominant. You can agree with that. That's what most people believe, right? The average person thinks men are dominant.
Maybe a while ago, but it's certainly not true nowadays. Like patriarchy, essentially. You're saying the patriarchy argument. I wonder if that lake's poisonous.
No,
okay.
I'm saying, what I'm saying is that people believe that. People believe men are
Probably
dominant.
Gonna die,
That's
guys.
the common consensus. That's what people believe. So what we believe and what we pretty much know is that women are dominant over men. Socially, men are submissive to women, and women are dominant over them. Right? Women control the relationships, men submit to them. So the reason why the term beta box is redundant is because men submit to women in relationships. It's
not all the time. Literally not all the time. Sometimes it's more balanced, and sometimes a man really does dictate the terms of the relationship. It really depends on the dynamic.
but the thing is, it's but on a systematic level, on a macro level, it is universal because institutionally, men submit. Like if you get married or you're in a relationship, you're submitting to the woman because you're under legal risks. So you're submitting. But even if you're dominant, let's say you're personally dominant in a relationship, you're the dominant guy, right? And she's submissive. She's still in charge of you because of the social and legal dynamics. She can boot your ass out, right? And divorce you, take your stuff. She can phone the police on you, get you arrested, right? If you have kids with her, she can boot you away from kids and make you pay for it. Yeah, so women are dominant over men. Men are actually submissive to women, and I think, and the thing is, a lot of macho men as well. This is another thing about, especially in the manosphere. Right, a lot of these like, oh yeah, you got to be in charge. You got to be the leader of the relationship. If you look at how they actually behave, they're submissive to their women as well. Men are submissive to women. They just don't want to.
See, the thing is, like those passive recourse. Like, I don't know if I would like definitely phrase it as like, you know, women being dominant over men on that regard. I mean, I might disagree with the language, but there are definitely like forms of like recourse, if you want to call it that. Like, maybe we could kind of agree on that sort of stuff. Because like the fact is, it's like it's more about like using the social system to kind of get their way. You know, they do tend to use that as their vector of attack. Social destruction.
Okay, who's dominant, the working class or the bourgeoisie?
The bourgeoisie
in society. Okay, so, and their dominance is cultural and legal and social, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's where power stems from. So power is collective.
Overarching dominant power and then the soft power that comes after it, in my opinion.
Yes.
Yeah, I know some person in my chat's like saying vet better. I mean, the thing, and I talk to everybody. This is just like me, you know, chilling and chatting, so I get it. You know, some people are gonna disagree.
Am I triggering people? But women have dominant power over men is because they got institutional power over men, and a lot of the reason why they got this power is because to a high degree. I can't think of any way that men have. Any man who has dominance over a woman is a criminal. It's abuse. It's seen as abuse, and he's a criminal. We won't be able to get away with it.
Yeah, I disagree with that. There's plenty of instances throughout history. Like, I don't want to go down like the whole medieval Europe LARP or anything like that, but it's like.
How long ago?
It's about 500 years ago from this point. So.
Yeah, but exactly. So why are we talking about 500 years ago then?
Well, because the fact is that like that is an instance of where men did have objective, concrete power over women. Like, you know, that is a historical thing.
Yeah, but how much power did it have?
Like actual legal power over them. Like, have you ever seen like I don't know if you ever heard the work by Shakespeare called like The Taming of the Shrew, which is quite literally where like a guy, you know, takes like an unwedded daughter to like buck break her into marriage or some shit like that, right? You know, it's kind of amazing the power that like men did have over women at the time, right? That's why I don't fully like say it's like, oh, okay, it's, you know, because women just, you know, explicitly oppress men today. That's one thing you'll probably never really get me to agree on, is because it's just like, I could agree about the stupid shit that men do, but like that's one of the things that's like, no, sorry.
So Shakespeare wrote a play Taming the Shrew.
Ancient Rome too, exactly.
500 years ago. So what's that got to do with the modern era? Like what? So when that.
I mean, the thing is like, there are still, you know, men that do have like, you know, strong cultural power today. It's not necessarily like the same as it was like 500 years ago, or even in ancient Rome. It's like, you know, if a girl loves you, she'll hear you out. Absolutely, that's been my thesis the entire time. Like that's my like saying, you know, I guess. Or you're saying too. Technically, you said it, not me.
Yeah, but the thing is, these men don't have power over women, though. They have power over other men on behalf of women. And the thing is, men,
but I mean, like I gave like an example of Admiral Fitzgerald and stuff like that. It's like, you know, it's like he's the one pulling the strings.
Yeah, but those women were those women were privileged. They didn't have to go to war. Right, I don't see how.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Resident Badass. It's just like there's like a time delay. I was just reading your comment. I agreed with you on that one.
Right, so I don't really want to jump to 500 years ago because I think
technical toaster, yeah.
Jumping to 500 years ago is not really that relevant to now, and also there's a lot of misunderstanding about gender dynamics in the past as well. Anyway, it's like
I'm gonna disagree with you on that one, but like, you know, we're free to disagree on that one. We can definitely do like another conversation later on, but it is getting a bit late, and I kind of just want to kind of chill and chat, you know.
Okay. So basically, so the point is, all right. So I want to wrap up. So there's a cost of living crisis for men. Men are getting more and more low status. More and more men are getting deselected because men want families, right? They want wives, right? And the reason why that's happening is because men are push out the job market and education. And feminists have captured levers of power and influenced levers of power. They've got affirmative action. They've taken over higher education. They've taken over the entertainment industry. And there's whisper networks where they informally network as well and push men out of work too.
See, the funny part is that, like, you know, like, I don't think there's, like, a global conspiracy that this is, like, feminism that's doing this. Like, this is kind of the big disagreement I'm probably going to have with you, is because the fact is, it's, like, it's a combination of, you know, boomers doing this and also, like, corporations. It's a giant cost passing, you know, thing that they're doing. Like, you know, they're passing the cost to, like, younger generations that they just literally cannot actually do it, right?
Okay, but why did corporations pander to women then, even when it burns the profits to the ground? Why did Intel?
You remember that old saying back in the day? Oh, go on.
Why did Intel did women? Why did Intel did a women in tech initiative that cost them hundreds of millions and led to nothing? Why did it do that?
You remember when, like, Sargon of Akkad used to say that if, like, you know, there was a pay gap, you know, companies would just quite literally hire women instead of men because they'd be cheaper to employ? I think, like, that is basically just, like, the conclusion of that logic. It's like, you know, they're more socially malleable and hireable and controllable, so that's why companies just went to that direction. And they just, you know, passed the cost and second-order consequences of that, you know, to everybody else. Like, that's my take.
So, women are more sociable. Are women more malleable and socially controllable, though, in workplace?
I think it was you who argued that earlier.
No, I'm saying women are more socially dominant. And in networking work, I'm saying women are more socially dominant, and in network, they've got whisper networks, they've got affirmative action on their side.
The Epstein class requires apparatchiks. Yeah, I agree. Like, that's kind of the thing. It's like, you know, trying to lay this at the feet of feminism is just like, I think we're just gonna have a fundamental disagreement on. It's like, the thing is like, you know, we're ruled by, like, cartel of wealthy pedophiles. It's like that thing is.
Okay.
Go on.
Well, why people talk about wealthy pedophiles when women can drink? Women in the UK can drink while pregnant and declare that they're doing it on purpose to maim the fetus, right? That's open legal child abuse, right? So
okay, I agree with you. You want to pass some laws to stop people from, like, causing birth defects to their children, you know, but that still doesn't prove your point that there's, like, a grand feminist conspiracy that's driving all these things. Like, you know, I've already talked about that ad infinitum. It's
okay. Before he ends, because we're going around in circles a little bit. What do you think feminism actually is, and what do you think feminism actually done? Let's say let's stick from the 60s. The past 60 years. Let's not think about the past. Past 60 years. What do you think feminism is, and what do you think it's actually done?
Well, advancing women's rights, for better or for worse, both positively and negatively. We're at the tail end of, like, you know, whatever was going on in the 2010s, like, and so we're just kind of downstream of that.
So what influence does feminism have in society then? What has it actually done? What laws has it passed?
Well, I mean, for a period of time, it started passing, like, a bunch of laws and using the courts to basically advance, like, women's political power through, like, you know, the legal system, so.
Right. Okay, so what political power have they gained? What laws have they changed in their favour?
You know, divorce laws. Like, that's one of them. Like, but there's also a reason for that, too. I don't want to, like, necessarily go on, like, the whole tangent of, like, overly defending feminists, but the thing is that, like, you know, there is a reason for that, is because, like, you know, if you look at, like, you know, a woman couldn't even own her own bank account for, like, till, like, the 80s, if I can remember correctly, the 70s, right?
Stop. That's just a lie. That's just a lie. That one's just a feminist lie. That's misinformation. You're repeating So I'm sorry to be so blunt. That's just misinformation.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Can I explain to you what that actually is? Okay.
Go for it.
Let me give you an example. Okay. In the UK, there was no right to a bank account up until recently. Okay. So what that meant was homeless men couldn't have a bank account. Or they could, but they could apply for it and they wouldn't get it.
Okay, so are you saying it's more similar to, like, you know, how voting was technically when they claimed that, like, only men had the right to vote, but that was only for, like, 10 years?
Women could always have a bank account, right? Okay. But they just didn't have a positive right to that bank account. It's out of context misrepresentation. Women had bank accounts. And also, here's another out of context thing as well. When they were married, women had bank accounts. It was a co-insurance, it was a joint asset, and she could withdraw from the bank account and write debts and make the men pay for the debts, and she wasn't liable for them, right? So the idea that women couldn't have bank accounts is out of context. It's just a feminist falsehood. It really is. Women had bank accounts.
Okay. But the thing is, like, okay, like, I can kind of see where you're going with that. I'm gonna steel man your position. Are you trying to say it's similar like when they use the talking point that only men had the right to vote, but that, like, you know, the time period which men had the right to vote and women didn't was like maybe a couple of decades with the invention of liberal democracy? You know, is that what you're trying to say, that it just kind of applied equally and they just kind of like, you know, took...
No, I'm just gonna play like, so in theory, right? In the past, like, so a single woman, you're going to get a bank account if you're a single woman, unless you're seen as unreliable. Same as a man, right?
Okay.
If you have bad credit history, right? If you try to a bank account, you're going to get a bank account, male or female, right? If you was female and you was married, maybe you wouldn't get a bank account, right? But you had that bank account with a husband, it was under her control anyway, right?
Alrighty,
and even
man.
if you was married, you're probably going to get a bank account anyway. The way the feminists frame it is, well, oh yeah, females couldn't get a bank account at all, which is false. Females had bank accounts.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there were probably cases where some females very rarely couldn't get a bank account because they didn't have the positive right for a bank account. Do you see what I'm saying now?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So they did have, but they did get bank accounts. It's out. The way the feminists frame it is like, oh, women didn't have bank accounts in the 70s. That blah blah blah. That's not true. They had bank accounts. It's like the thing in like the women went to universities in the past, blah blah blah. That's not true either, right? Like even during the First World War, like 25% of the university people in university were women, and only a small minority of people could go to university. So anyway, I think you severely underestimate the influence that feminists have, and you don't seem to be aware of the laws that feminists.
I think you overestimate it, man. Like I'm not gonna deny like some of the shit that like it does do, but it's like, I'm gonna go ahead and close it off. Like I said, I can agree with some of the things, but I'm gonna go ahead and like, you know, probably make it chill for like the rest of the stream. So, you know.
Okay.
It is what it is. We had some good agreements. Probably disagreement on like 20% of stuff.
Okay, but so you're just not in denialism though, like literally.
No, I disagree, because like the thing is like I can look at ancient Rome and I can look at ancient Greece and I can look at, you know, ancient or medieval Europe to see like, you know, where women were kind of controlled. Like that's kind of thing, and that's an undeniable aspect of history.
Okay. Let me play the same game. Sparta was ruled by rich women in ancient Greece. Therefore, using your logic, we can only focus on that, and what's going on now doesn't matter. Rich women ruled ancient Sparta. We want to bring up ancient history. I don't see how that's relevant, but I can bring up examples in ancient history. How is ancient history relevant to now?
Man, I do appreciate chatting with you. We had a good conversation for a good period of time, but it's like, you know, I can't agree with you on like...
Okay. All right,
you take it easy.
All right, yeah, we're going in circles.
Yeah, I don't want to kill the atmosphere.
You know what you believe. Okay.
I appreciate having you on, but I don't want to like, you know, make the situation go any more negatives, because we're just not going to agree on this thing. But you have a good evening, man.
All right, all right, it's cool. No, I don't consider it negative at all. Don't worry. Right, I'll see you later.
Okay. We'll see you around, man. I'll be doing more streams anyway, so take it easy. All right. Yeah, that's one of the things that I'll probably not personally really agree with on, is that like, you know, the overemphasis on making it about, you know, some secret cabal of women. Like, I'm not gonna say Anita Sarkeesian isn't necessarily a big part of this. Okay, she's obviously funded. Like, we've heard of Collective Shout. Okay, he's not necessarily entirely wrong, right? But the thing is, it's like with Admiral Fitzgerald. Who's the one who's pulling the strings when it comes to the white feather movement? Like, it's quite literally a guy that's a part of the ruling class doing it. It's like, it's not just literally just women doing it. It's like, not to absolve women of the stupid shit that they do, not even to absolve Anita Sarkeesian of what you know, she's done. But the thing is that who's pulling the strings at the end of the day? Literally, it just got exposed that we're under the control of a cartel of rich pedophiles who have gone on the World Economic Forum to basically tell us we're going to be perpetual renters with no privacy and infinite surveillance while they diddle children in their mansions. We already know that we're under the control of these people. And so the thing is that what they sponsor, you know, different, you know, yeah, it's the elites, Alistair, men and women. They really don't really have a gender on this one. That's one of the things I can't really do, okay? Is the thing is that, like, you know, these elites, if you want to call them that, like the wealthy pedophiles, the plutocrats or whatever, right? These people are the ones pulling the strings. And it's not just men or women in that regard. I mean, like Ghislaine Maxwell or whatever her name was, played a large role with Epstein on this little ring, okay? So that's kind of the thing. To say it's just feminists that's explicitly doing this, it's like now you're just kind of getting to the campism that, you know, like MRAs and like, you know, feminists kind of like, you know, go out and, you know, beef with one another on. It's like, you know, they're just busy blaming each other for everything, right? And so that's why I don't really accept that stuff. It's like, we're not going to agree on that one. Maybe we could agree about cultural double standards about how young men are getting shafted in modern society. Like, totally granted on that one. But one of those things, no, I just can't agree with this, because the fact is we know who's really pulling the strings. We all do, right? That's the reason why we're here. That's the reason we talk about the cost of living crisis. And that's not to dissuade or even, like, you know, ignore the things that, like, he was talking about primarily. Is because they're all pretty much real, you know, 80% of the time. But, you know, billionaires are the problem. That's essentially what's going down to it, is because who's pulling the strings at the end of the day? The members of the ruling class. Alistair, where do you see the Western dating market is heading? Like, where's the future? This is going to be a hot take. This is going to piss off a lot of the red pillars, the hypergamous types, the people who talk about female nature, whatever, talking it's all about status and stuff like that. Literally, people are going to go down the dual incoming route, where, because the fact is now that it's no longer an option where if you are a dual incoming couple where you can have a nice house and a nice life and stuff like that, it's a requirement to have any sense of a family nowadays. And it's fucked up, is because the fact is, if you look at the house price in terms of household income, you know, the household income is literally still 3 times the household, house prices are still 3 times the household income, right? But that includes both men and women working, not just individual men working, right? And so that's kind of the thing. It's like, that's probably the dynamic things are going. It's kind of funny, is because the fact is a lot of the people, especially on the traditional right, talking about resurrecting, you know, traditional relationships and traditional families and stuff like that. They literally can't, because the entire economic system is literally rigged against them. If you are a guy who wants to settle down and have a family, own a house, you know, have a wife and raise a family off all these things off of a single income, it is quite literally impossible to do that. I couldn't even do that. I work as a full-time engineer, and I could not be able to afford to raise a family and take care of a wife and own a house at the same time off of my income. That's the reality that we exist in. That's the reality that most people don't want to acknowledge that we're in. Because the thing is that is what I mean by there's a war, an invisible war on traditional families, in a sort of sense. Not a culture war, but an economic war. That's the truth of it. The truth of it is that there's already been an economic war on the traditional family, not a culture war. People can blame feminists all day for the destruction of the traditional family. No, it was an economic war that destroyed the traditional families, because it's quite literally financially impossible to raise a family off of a single income anymore nowadays. Oh boy, a 50-year mortgage on a $1 million starter home for a flimsy cardboard house that barely is 30 years, if lucky. Yeah, the one that was, you know, the boomers bought for $70K like 50 years ago, and then are telling you that they know what they've got. You know, they know what it's worth. They're not giving up on it. Part of that, I can see the go that way. Others say I can see the MIDI family deal has been set up. Yeah, is this a genocide happening? See, the funny part is that, like, when it comes to a genocide happening, what's going on now, when it comes to the reason why people are not able to have sex, settle down, and have families, is because the fact is we are a society of cost passers that passes the cost of everything on the next person on the lap. And, you know, obviously the working class is what everybody dumps their entire load on when it comes to doing anything. And so the thing is that, like, you know, it's like, you know, you can have Elon Musk saying, like, we need to raise the birth rates of this country. You know, we need to bring back, you know, families and all this sorts of stuff. But is his company doing anything to facilitate the economic conditions for people to settle down and have families in the first place? No. Because at the end of the day, you know, they're just going to pass the cost and the expectation onto average people to make up for what they won't actually do, okay? And so that's the reason why it's going on. It's not necessarily an explicit genocide. It's just the fact is that we're a nation of cost passers that throw, you know, the cost to the next person down the line, and the working class is always the, you know, end of the tail when it comes to this. So, you know, you can be in your inner baby quarter, weak-armed ass response. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Nobody's perfect. It's the thing. It's like, I'm willing to have an open discussion, but there's some points where I'm just kind of like, nah, this is kind of stupid. A silent economic genocide. Yeah, you could kind of say that, is because that's kind of the funny part as well. People blame the culture wars on the reason why people can't settle down and have families. It's not culture wars. It's an economic war on ordinary people being able to settle down and have families. It's an economic war. And that's the thing. That's the brutal truth that most people on the right need to kind of acknowledge, is that it was an economic war that destroyed their way of life. So, and I'm saying this as somebody who's an egalitarian, by the way. I'm a gender egalitarian. I dual income. Like, I don't hide that fact. I'm not a traditionalist. But the thing is, I can't help but notice that it was an economic war that destroyed the traditional family more than anything. And that's gonna be what's gonna bite the ass of, like, the mainstream right. You've already seen this with Ben Shapiro. Is the fact is you can't tell people to live a certain way and then literally rip the rug from underneath their feet to assess that reality, and then act surprised when people get pissed. You know, Tim Dillon, like, said once, the economy is all on a credit card now, but if true, sure, yeah. August the 8th of the month must be 8 IQ. Yeah, okay, something like that. Boomers just want to consume everything like it's a fucking Ouroboros. Yeah, it is what it is. It's a waiting game for me. If the United States wants to continue being fucking retarded and just like destroying everything, you know, be my guest. You know, that's the thing. It's like, you know, you can only give people advice on how to not fuck it up, but you got to realize our enemies, our opponents, anybody who gets upset at us wearing the stupid ass green hat because we hate CEOs and rich people, you know, the thing is that they're emotionally reacting to what we're just more or less pointing at as the obvious fact, right? You know, they're trying to, because I remember one person was coming in after that debate and he was basically getting upset because like most of the arguments like that for, especially from the elder generations, are kind of focused on me being a supposed Marxist or a communist. Okay. And the thing is, he was like, you know, people who talk about working class politics must, you know, drink mocha lattes or something like that, right? You know, that's the common stereotype, that anybody who talks about class politics is just too enfranchised to actually care about it, that it comes from luxury politics. And for a time being, that was the case. You know, you saw a lot of the so-called champagne socialists that were doing it because they cared about the working class from like a benevolent angle or some nonsense like that, right? But the thing is that predicates itself on the notion that people who are poor will never care about class issues. And the thing is that, like, I told him, I was like, let's make a bet. Why don't you try and make everybody poor and see if that makes people care more or less about class politics? Is because even in the most brutal times of the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, you know, labor activism was way more common, even though, like, people working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. 996 was not something invented in China, by the way. It was invented in the early industrialization of Great Britain, where people worked in factories from 12 hours a day, you know, 6 days a week with only Sunday off, being explicitly for church. And so the thing is that, like, they were still able to engage in labor activism. So I don't know why, you know, the idea is that, like, making people's lives worse is going to make them less revolutionary. If you want people to be less revolutionary, just take a note from the boomer generation, who literally got everything out of their existence and then pulled the ladder, and less than 3% of them are communist or even economically leftist. It's quite simple, but, you know, this generation is going to tell us that if they keep making us poor, somehow we're going to become less revolutionary, less angry. We're going to put less green hats in the chat. Yeah, we're going to put less green hats or something like that. You know, you guys are going to put less green hats in the chat and totally don't put as many Luigi hats in the chat as possible if we become less enfranchised. If we become less enfranchised, they're betting on the fact that people are going to become less communist. You couldn't, you know, make this shit up with these stupid people. Let's get some more green hats in the chat. But yeah. That's their entire logical thesis of, you know, how they portray our side of the aisle. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's not going to work. That's the thing, you know. But they're free to try and do whatever they like. And they gaslight the rest of us why they can't do the same with it. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. You know, it's crazy because it's all just predicated on gaslighting and lying. And they just don't get it. They don't get it why people, you know, would... It's amazing. They don't get why people would put Luigi hats in their profile. They're like, you're celebrating a murderer. It's like, well, have you looked at the fact of why so many people are celebrating somebody who popped the CEO? Do you not think that maybe people might have a backlash at, like, ruthless and endless greed that has completely destroyed all of civilization? Like, how do you not get this? How do you not understand that if you make everybody else poor, that they might be pissed off about that? Like, you know, and then you'll mock them saying that, like, oh, you'll just sip on your stupid little mocha latte. Like, you know, my friend, you know, people who are enfranchised and drink on their little mocha lattes and, you know, live in nice houses, they don't do revolutionary things, okay? And certainly making them poor isn't going to make them do less revolutionary things. It's going to make them do more revolutionary things. But they don't get that. So that's the thing. It goes down to the fact, like, you know, you've got nothing to lose but your chains, as cringy as it sounds, but it's true. You know, it's like when it comes to prison, okay? You know, who's the person you don't fuck with in the prison, okay? Let's be real. You've all heard this before. Who's the last person you fuck with in the prison? It's the lifer. It's the person who has nothing left to lose. Why do you not fuck with the person who's in there for life? Is because he's already there for life. If you look at him the wrong way, he's gonna murder you, okay? It's no different with the working class. You know, people who have nothing left to lose do evil shit. It's always been that way. It always will be that way. You don't disenfranchise people and then act surprised that when they do evil shit. That's just how it works. So, how many people died because of that CEO's decisions? Oh, they'll never acknowledge that in a court of law, but they'll definitely acknowledge Luigi's supposed evils in the court of law. It's kind of funny how these prosecutors are starting. You know, this is kind of the thing I love about these, like, bourgeois prosecutors, right? Is because, you know, you got to love the double standard of the justice system. Is because the fact is they'll put in court gag orders. Like, if, like, a social media figure like any of us, like, decided to get dragged into court, for some bullshit we said on the internet, like they would probably put out a million gag orders to silence us. But then like the prosecutor, like during the Luigi trial, literally conspired with the media to make a half-assed PR campaign against him. It was so pathetic that like nobody bought it. It was one of those smear campaigns that everybody saw immediately and it just backfired. I mean, the funny part is the entire smear campaign that was done against him, like, you know, at the beginning of the trial, when he was first arrested, you know, backfired so hard. They tried to call him like a bourgeois agent. They said, well, armed moral hypocrite, he came from wealthy background and stuff like that. And that still didn't shake off the support from him. And, you know, now they're trying to capture the kind of incel, you know, disdain because he apparently has a bunch of fangirling him, you know, from jail. You know, truly pathetic smear campaigns against Luigi. But the thing is you gotta love the double standard of like the court system. You know, the funny part is that like one guy who was in the comment section sent me a video, said go look up the Lego situation with like Reckless Ben or whatever, right? Is because the funny part is that like if you haven't been paying attention with the lifer, the triangle shirtwares factory fire, those seeking CEOs get no jail time. Yo, absolutely. I feel the pain. But the thing is, Reckless Ben's like exposition on this Lego, you know, small business owner. The funny part is that like it was just, you know, your like clear cut, you know, lawfare that was going on. He seems like a patsy. You never know. But, you know, the thing, it was your clear-cut, like, lawfare that was happening in this situation. The guy was trying to sue some small business owner that was a part of a well-connected Mormon network in the state of Utah, which doesn't surprise me that it's at the state and local level, is because he did seem like a well-connected guy, is because the entire police department was pretty much, you know, going, you know, taking a side unanimously. And it seems like they had their own reason to do that. But the thing is like they tried to engage in lawfare. They tried to accuse Reckless Ben of like, you know, a bunch of drug-related charges, which turned out to be bullshit. They accused him of being on heroin. They accused him of trespassing and all these sorts of things, right? You know, this is kind of like the lawfare that like goes on, you know, within society. The kind of underhanded like tactics that people play throughout the court system. But this isn't new. Like I said in my previous videos, is that, you know, when it comes to the liberal democratic system, this is how people exert political power over one another within the system. Is they essentially come up with false pretext charges to throw people in jail. That's just the dynamic of the Habeas Corpus Act, where you can't throw people in jail for unjust reasons. You have to essentially make a pretext to throw somebody in jail. You can't do it for no reason. And that's just kind of how that works out. Cops are like, those are the laws. Jimmy Dore said it and was one of the part of the family cops. They don't think or question things. They just look at... The thing is like, they'll say that's just the law. They'll throw the book at somebody. The thing is that like, you know, when it comes to the selective enforcement of law, it's just the nature of bureaucracy, of like where somebody's going to throw a book at you is because they don't like you, or they're going to like give you a pass because they like you, right? This is just, you know, none of this is necessarily new. Like lawfare isn't necessarily new either, but you know, that's the thing. But and people wonder why I hate cops and judges. Well, yeah, it's because the fact is they use loaded language to basically make false allegations and, you know, charges against you as well, right? And government hate you as well. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. But at the end of the day, it's amazing, like, the double standard of, like, how they control PR to basically form their own stupid little narrative, right? You know, and the funny part is, even when they try to do, like, their own little PR stunt to smear somebody, it just fails anyways, right? I'd rather be next to a bear than a cop. Understandable. Money talk to law is BS. Such bullshit, yeah. They need to be transparent in the prisons. Then Attica happened. That would be almost none. You know what, I'm going to be honest with you, and this might be kind of a bizarre take. Everybody talked about body cams on, you know, cops, right? But one thing I would probably think would be better is body cams on judges, you know, as well. It's like, you know, when they're in the middle of a trial or proceeding, it was like publicizing it as much as possible instead of doing these stupid little gag orders. Is because like what they like to do is they like to control like whatever the truth is from the courtroom, so they can, you know, create their own little PR narrative in the court system that they can tell the public afterwards. And they'll put a gag order on somebody saying, well, you can't talk about that, is because that'll influence the decision of the trial. And then they'll violate, you know, ex parte communications in the court between the judge and the prosecutor to make up some bullshit story. It's amazing how much these people lie to cover their own asses to essentially, you know, create their own PR narrative. And then they get pissed off at some social media figure like Reckless Ben, like completely trashing their public reputation. And that was a funny press announcement by that cop. It was hilarious. Judges are even worse than cops, in my opinion. I mean, if you want to know the mentality of your average judge, just go to like any mainstream politics Discord server and watch how petty like an average Discord moderator is, and recognize that, like, you know, real life judges are really not that much different from that either. So cops, judges, DS, enemy of the trifecta. Yeah, that's true. 69 watching, nice. Yeah, that's true. Oh, by the way, Chief Justice and Scoses aren't as smart as we led them to believe. Yeah, I believe that. So, I'm gonna see how deep I can dive in this one. I don't know what this boom powder is. I don't know if this is gonna blow something up. I need to drop this stuff off. I'm gonna go build it into a chest. But yeah, cops are just minions. The thing is that, like, if you want to actually seize power, you essentially got to build your own dual power structure. You've got to have your own media apparatus. Like, that's kind of the interesting thing, is because you need to have the ability to, like, you know, reach out to your audience when they're busy smearing you in jail, right? You know, that's what you have to essentially do. You've got to be able to have your spiel. Like, if I were, for instance, you know, to be visited by the feds for having negative opinions about rich pedophiles, the first thing I would ask everybody to do, even though I'm sitting in jail, is just to force their hand to allow me to speak publicly, is because that's what they're afraid of more than anything else, is because they know that if they can't control PR, you know, that makes them look bad, right? Is because their entire thing, even a court case, is about controlling PR. So that's personally what I would do. Time to build a second chest. But you never know. There's so much lawfare going on in these days, you never know what people are trying to do. Which Minecraft mod? It looks so surreal. It's not a Minecraft mod, dude. It's just Hytale. That's all it is. Hytale. It's a game. It's like an alternative Minecraft in a sort of sense. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to store. I don't want that. I'm going to try and burn that. Can I convert that? Okay. So that actually is an ore. I don't know what these shards are. Moss. Burnt dirt. I didn't know that was a thing. Dirt. Bone fragments. I think that's like skeleton stuff. Cooked wild meat. Yeah. It's Minecraft that doesn't look like shit. Yeah. Something like that. Well, we got our iron armor. Now we gotta figure out what the thorium stuff does. Okay, so we ran out of coal. Yeah, they kind of are. But the thing is like, it's a lot more localized, you know, between that. Because, like, you gotta understand, like, you know, if you look at the Reckless Ben incident, right, that has to do with, like, the Utah and local governments. Like, that's the dynamic that's going on there. So, have you heard about the old guy that got his whole entire Lego collection stolen by a big Lego corporation? That's what I was talking about. It's like, I think that's the Reckless Ben case. I was, like, actually watching that, and he was kind of more or less trying to... Because he had already won a court case against, the guy, but he wasn't, like, actually following through with the court orders, which is kind of hilarious, is that, like, you know, essentially he was just kind of weaseling way out, and it turned out he was, like, a part of a well-connected Mormon network, which is not surprising. It's Utah, you know. You're more chill, angry guy, Alistair. You really see the bigger picture. Yeah, angry guy. Yeah, I know that guy. Angry MGTOW. Like, that's kind of the funny part, is because, like, he has a beef going on with, like, you know, philosophical gamer, and that's kind of an interesting one. Yeah. A more chill, angry guy. Yeah, I could accept that. You mentioned your take on the dating market. I don't disagree with it, but what's stopping us from getting the same outcome as Japan and South Korea got? Because we still have nominally better, like, standards of living than, you know, South Korea. Like, did you know, like, somebody has to work multiple jobs just to be able to afford, like, a closet in South Korea? Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, this is why I say class politics is gonna get ugly in the United States, is because the fact is, we all know what the world was like before that stuff. Like, South Korea is like a proxy state for the United States, pretty much, you know, built up by American military might, okay? You know, but it's also the canary in the coal mine when it comes to the cost of living crisis. Whatever, you know, you see going on in South Korea and Japan, kind of see that as like a demo trial of what they're going to do here eventually. Is because the thing is that, like, you know, just like the typical capitalist, it's like they're going to try and squeeze as much value as they possibly can. They're going to try and squeeze blood from stones. And what's going to happen is that, like, you're going to see the same stuff, like, start to happen in the United States. You can see this with the World Economic Forum about how they say only the rich will own property in the future, whatever, right? Is because at the end of the day, capitalists don't like to stop on anything. They want to go on endless greed. And so the thing is that, like, the reason why the dating market is so bad there is because of that wealth inequality. Now, imagine you're, you know, meeting a girl on Tinder or Bumble or whatever. I don't really care what dating app, you know, you're trying to meet a girl, and, you know, your apartment is literally the size of a closet. And you're like, oh, by the way, this is where I live. You know, you were like, I want to start a family with you. How do you think that's going to go? You know, bringing a woman back to a place the size of a closet. But that's all you can afford is because you're so busy working 3 different jobs. Then you understand why the gender dynamics are so bad there, and also why the birth weights are so terrible there too, right? So, you know, think of it as like, you know, what's happening there is going to eventually happen here if nothing gets done. I think something is going to get done is because everybody remembers the world that boomers had. Like, there's media that exists of it. You know, people saw what boomers lived through. And so, you know, people are going to chimp out over that. People advocating for unification would basically mean North Koreans trade a dictator with a giant dictatorial structure called Samsung Corporations. You know, unironically, yeah. And so the thing is but would, like, the People's Republic of Samsung be better than the People's Republic of North Korea or whatever, right? I don't believe the economy is the reason the birth rate is declining, because there are places where absolute garbage economies like Africa, and they actually have massive birth rates. I don't even know if that's true anymore. That used to be like the talking point for idiocracy. I'm not even sure if that's true. Because the fact is, it's like, it always seemed like a stereotype that poor people breed too much. And it was one of those Malthusian talking points that, you know, that seems to make sense in the first place, but when you actually think it through, it's just kind of retarded. You know? U.S. imperialism has various experiments across the globe. South Korea is one, Israel is another. Yeah, that's true. Honestly, we should just tech reset. EMP across the globe. Cut out all the bullshit. You want to check out my broom closet? You know, what a lad, dude. He's going to be having such a family eventually. You know, impressing his partner with that one. Are you familiar with Japonometry's thing about South Korea's how the rich ate the poor? I think I watched that video a long time ago. It's a perfect example of it, you know. But the thing is like, what are they going to do about it? It's like, the thing is, the people who did do about it, and this is going to be a hot take, the people who did do something about the rich eating the poor, they're all in North Korea because they're communist. So, but the thing is, you know, South Korea is a military dictatorship, so is what it is. It was a military dictatorship up until the 90s. You know, the ruling class could have gotten away with like a lot of the stuff it did if it just kept like the imperial core, like, you know, enfranchised, and then it exported technologies to these countries to start sharing what is considered to be the American dream. But they didn't. Instead of turning South Korea like the United States, it's trying to turn the United States like South Korea. South Koreans would oppose a peaceful reunification of Korean peninsulas. North Korean folks would take her jobs or undercut local labor. Yeah, at that point, they probably would. Like, there's not really, like, anything they can do about it at this point. The birth rate is more of a matter of education. Less education tends to produce more kids. I don't know about that one. Got a wage tomorrow. I'll see you in the stream tomorrow. No, that's how it works out, dude. I'll see you around, dude. You and I need to go over there, Alistair, and create a K-12 university egalitarian system. See, it's not so much about creating an egalitarian system. You can do education all day, but you've got to fix the cost of living crisis, or people just aren't going to have kids. It's that simple. But nobody wants to talk about that. They're not thinking about people building killdozers, but also more refined killdozers. Imagine killdozers, larger fuels. Yep, it is what it is. But with that being said, it's been a fun stream. It's been fun having like the I wouldn't say like MGTOW guy, but MRA guy on the chat, and having a discussion with him and understanding his side of the aisles, because that was a much more peaceful interview. Obviously, he had made some good points, but probably towards the end when he started getting into the whole feminist, you know, stuff, controlling everything, and that like women have always oppressed men, you're gonna have to disagree on that one, because like we all know who's really pulling the strings. You know, it's the Epstein class. It's the Irish. How about that one? But you know, with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and close off the stream because I'm gonna head to bed. You guys have a good evening and take it easy. Get some green hats in that chat before we close off. Peace, peace.